Naruto, Tsunade, Kakashi and Gaara after the fight with I Otsutsuki were sucked to another dimension with unexpected company to read the life of Naruto the Caterpillar. So without a further ado let's start the story. Naruto stared at the groaning blonde with wide eyes. Was every female from Superman's world absurdly attractive? Gaara, are you alright? How did you get here? Superman rushed towards his disoriented cousin who only just registered his voice. Clark? Wonder Woman? You're here? Wait, you're all here. Gaara looked at the superheroes, visibly shocked. Where are we? How'd you get here? Kakashi's eyebrow raised at the mention of the man's real name. Clark. It sounded so average. Almost like someone thought of a common name and just gave it to him. Clark frowned disapprovingly. I don't know where we're either. And I've told you not to call me by name when we're on the job. But you called me by my name first. Gaara retorted. Oh. Superman blinked. He hadn't realized his mistake. Barry snickered at the man. Guess the others know we have real names now? Green Arrow said, rubbing his beard. Tsunade fixed the man with a blank stare. Did he think they didn't know that from the beginning? I think now's as good a time as any to share your names with us. Green Arrow looked at the others who looked contemplative before shrugging. Hey, no harm in doing so. My name's Oliver Queen. Flash followed. Barry Allen. Black Canary sighed. Dinah Lance. Wonder Woman nodded. Diana of Themyscira, but you can call me Diana Prince. Superman waved his hand. Ah, Clark Kent. Hale Jordan. Green Lantern powered down his ring. Martian Manhunter spoke. John Jones. Batman. Batman nodded. Everyone stared at the man. Your name is actually Batman? Kakashi asked disbelievingly. The man was a lot stranger than he gave him credit for if that was true. He just doesn't want to say it. Superman rolled his eyes. He might do so later, who knows. Were you also brought here via a portal? Batman suddenly asked Supergirl who nodded. Yeah, I didn't even see it take me until I found myself falling a few minutes ago. She squinted in thought. Or at least I think it was a few minutes ago. I'm not sure how long I fell for. Relatable. Barry smiled at her. It's nice to know you didn't have to deal with the terror of being able to do nothing as a portal swallowed you from the feet down and take you into a void in which you plummeted towards what could have been a painful death. Everyone stared at the speedster who blinked. What? I worry about you sometimes, Barry. Hale shook his head. It had to be the man's constant time traveling. Who knew what things he'd seen in the multiple timelines he went to? That shockingly dark bit from Flash aside, Oliver started slowly. What's been going on in the world since we disappeared? What do you mean, since you disappeared? Gaara tilted her head confusedly. I thought we all got here at the same time. No, we've been here for hours. Oliver argued. We've even had 6 or 9 hours combined for the breaks we've taken in between the chapters. Whoever brought us here said it already, Arrow. No passage of time, both here and out there. Hale reminded the archer. Honestly, it still felt unbelievable. Time was relative between places, yes, but it was completely impossible to grind both to a halt. When time was faster in one place, it was slower in the other, but the halting of time entirely in one wasn't supposed to cause the same effect in the other. It just didn't happen. If there's no passage of time, how do you spend hours here? Gaara asked. Clark tapped his forehead just as Hale raised his ring. She sighed. Right, supercomputer brain and supercomputer ring. Comes in handy in times like these. Hale chuckled. Gaara snorted amusedly before the archer's words came back to her mind. Chapters? You guys are reading a book? Well, yeah. Turns out we all got sent here so we could read about an alternate version of Naruto here. Barry pointed at the blonde who quietly watched their exchange. Honestly, he hated seeing Naruto so down, but he had no idea how to go about cheering the boy up. Gaara turned to the blonde, finally noticing him and the other unfamiliar faces. Who are you people? I'm pretty sure I've never seen any place where they dress like you do. That's because we're not from your world, Gaara. Kakashi smiled at her, his mask somehow didn't shift an inch in spite of his action. What planet are you from then? Tri-dimension. Tsunade spoke, getting the girl's attention. Gaara's eyes briefly went down to the woman's bust and felt a bit of envy run through her. How did they get so big? Her envious look didn't escape Tsunade who smirked. Dimension. She looked at them all. You're from another universe? Nice. You don't seem surprised. Gaara finally stopped staring at Naruto to look at her. I've met people from other universes many times, myself included. Gaara shrugged. Universe would imply our world is linked to yours. Naruto spoke out for the first time since the previous chapter ended. We're from another reality entirely. Oh. Gaara's eyes widened. Wow, I know about the multiverse, but another reality? Trippy. Clark looked at her strangely. Trippy? That's what we thought too. Barry smirked. But here we are. You think there's a chance that fictional characters actually exist in a separate reality too? Gaara looked intrigued by the idea. I'm not sure, most likely not. The speedster shrugged uncertainty. It was scientifically impossible. The only way that would happen would be for said reality to be created at the same time as the creator of those characters made them. Gaara nodded disappointedly. Come to think of it, the strangers all bore an uncanny resemblance to a Japanese comic she and Barbara loved to read. Especially Naruto. Kakashi cleared his throat. I believe introductions are in order. My name's Kakashi, nice to meet you. Tsunade sighed. She hated introductions. Tsunade. Gaara. Gaara nodded at her. Naruto waved lightly at her. Naruto. I'm guessing you're Superman's cousin? Yeah, did he tell you that? She looked at him with narrowed eyes. Her suspicion aside, he really resembled that comic book character. Barbara would probably go a bit crazy if she were here. The girl had developed a small crush on the character and littered her room with printed fanart of him. Weird, but she wasn't one to judge. He did. Naruto nodded, but didn't say anything more before going back to staring at the book on the floor. Oh, okay. She raised an eyebrow at him but turned to Kakashi. Doesn't talk much, does he? He's just subdued. Barry was the one who answered her. Trust me, he snaps out of his funk, it'll be like seeing a different person. Gaara looked at the boy who had gone back to staring at the book on the floor. The faint laugh lines on his face told her he smiled a lot and his hair, which was even brighter than hers, lent him an air of cheer, but he didn't look the part at all. He looked like what people thought was the face of depression. She could see Wonder Woman glancing at the blonde in the middle of her conversation with Batman and curiously listened to the man's heartbeat spike slightly in a pattern that could only mean irritation whenever she did. Curious. There was a rumor that the Amazon had been friend-zoned by Batman, but that wasn't the heartbeat of a man who saw someone as just a friend. Right. She muttered and sat back next to Naruto, much to his confusion. She stayed quiet for a few moments before speaking again. Yo. Naruto couldn't help his light snort. Yo. Nice weather we're having. Gaara continued, getting an odd look from him. Naruto didn't really feel like joking, but went along with it anyway. It's bright, a bit warm and the air smells great so I can't complain. She chuckled. So how long have you been here anyways? We got here a little before Superman and the others did. I have to say though, it's a nice place. Gaara looked around. You know, if you ignore the fact that we're not here by choice. I think we've all gotten used to it. Naruto shrugged. We're not staying here forever, just till we're done with the book. Oh yeah, the book. Gaara nodded. So what exactly is this book about anyway? I mean, I know it's an alternate version of you, but what's been happening so far? Naruto wanted to tell her to pick up the book and read it, but decided not to. Well, my alternate self's a space mercenary and bounty hunter who saved you and Superman. I'm pretty sure you already know his name now, you heard me saying it. Gaara interrupted him. I'm used to calling him Superman. Naruto glanced at the man who was staring at them both. Besides, he didn't look too happy to have his name exposed like that. It's all right, Naruto. Clark spoke, having heard him. You can call me Clark, the cat's out of the bag anyway. Naruto nodded and turned back to Gaara. I saved you and Clark from the preserver. Who? Gaara squinted as she tried to recall any villain bearing that name to no avail. Naruto smiled slightly. Some guy who collects rare things from everywhere around the universe. Sometimes it's animals, sometimes it's people. He had a big ship too, but I blew it up. Gaara made a noise of approval. Nice, nice. And I was there? No, just Superman. Naruto shook his head. But I saved you on Argo. You actually got to the city? Gaara asked him surprisedly. That must be one durable ship. Yeah, I got into the city. Naruto sent Kakashi a triumphant look. Kakashi rolled his eyes. Alternate universe, Naruto. Argo's a planet there and you owe me 100,000. Really? Argo's a planet there? Gaara was shocked. Naruto sighed resignedly. Yeah, it was a planet. Gaara didn't look as downtrodden as Clark had been. You owe him 100,000? That's a lot of money, Naruto. How'd you work up a debt that large? He lost a bet. Tsunade answered in Naruto's place. I told you not to be so carefree with money. Sure, Granny. Naruto grumbled and dodged another cork Tsunade tossed at his head. Just how many corks did she keep on her? What do you mean by Granny? Gaara gave Naruto a confused look. She doesn't look a day over 30. Naruto trailed off when he saw Tsunade's glare. Kinda like a grandmother to me. Nice save. Kakashi snickered. If you say so. Gaara nodded skeptically before grinning lightly. I couldn't help but notice your weapon pouch. You're a ninja, aren't you? Awesome. Kakashi's eyes widened. How did she know what was in there? Naruto blinked. So this was what Diana meant by people in her world digging the mercenary lifestyle. How did you even come to that conclusion? You've got kunai in there. Only ninjas use them. She pointed at the pouch and panicked internally when she realized she'd have to explain her X-ray vision if he asked how she knew. I could see the outline. Kakashi hummed. I'm beginning to think we're doing something wrong at this point since Batman saw it too. But no, Gaara. Kunai are a farmer's tool. And it inspired ninjas to fashion their own model. You sure as hell aren't a farmer too. Gaara deadpanned. She'd done a lot of reading in her spare time and she'd laser her own arm off if any of them were farmers. What makes you think so? Kakashi raised an eyebrow curiously. For one, farmers don't wear combat gloves. Gaara pointed out. The silver-haired man sighed. Horizontal ellipsis. Who's going to read the next chapter now? Flash asked when everyone gathered again, courtesy of Superman who said it was time to start reading the next chapter. Before anyone could say anything, the book flew into Diana's hand. The woman sighed. She'd been hoping it would pass her by for a few more chapters. The book has chosen you. John stated the obvious, much to Barry's amusement. Hey Manhunter, can I interest you in a game of Dungeons and Dragons when we get back? The speedster asked. With the way you speak, you'd be a hit with the gang. You still play D&D? Oliver snickered. How the hell did you get married? Iris loves the game. Barry frowned at him. And Clark joins in too sometimes. Clark gave the archer a sheepish smile. The game is pretty fun. If I didn't know it would take all her time, I'd get Gaara a deck too. I knew you were forgetting on purpose. Gaara glared at the man. What's so bad about me playing D&D? Aside from the fact that you and Barbara skipped 3 days of sleep and showers so you wouldn't stop playing the last time you went to visit her? We had to keep the excommunicated paladin occupied until the knights showed up. Gaara defended herself. Do you know how hard it was not to punch him in the face while he groped me? Barry coughed. Up until his previous character got executed, he had played as a paladin who got excommunicated for being a lecher, but it wasn't possible for them to be the reason the dice rolled wrong for him. Right? Kakashi gave the blushing girl a slightly disturbed look. 3 days? I can't even abstain from showering for a day without feeling sticky. Naruto scoffed. Kakashi was as much of a clean freak as the word got. The man's house was always squeaky clean and smelled of cleaning products. It wasn't surprising that his obsession with hygiene applied to his own body as well. But yeah, purposely skipping a bath for 3 days was a bit excessive. What's Dungeons and Dragons? Naruto asked Gaara. It's a card game, I don't really know how to explain it. She shook her head sadly. She really wished Barbara was here. I love card games. Naruto responded brightly. I play the black deck a lot when I'm at home. Kakashi frowned at the boy. Doesn't the black deck need 3 people to play? Yeah, so? Naruto tilted his head. You live alone. Naruto didn't respond for a moment. Kakashi would never let him live it down if he found out he played cards with his own clones. Kiba and the others come to visit me sometimes. Right. Kakashi nodded slowly, clearly not believing the boy. Gaara looked at the boy enviously. You live alone? I've been trying to move away from my parents' place, but they won't let me. Gaara, you're 18 and unemployed. Clark sighed. I can find a job. She shot back heatedly. Or I'd be able to if you let me actually stay in Metropolis. Naruto shook his head with a small smile. Living alone isn't as fun as it sounds, Gaara. It gets lonely sometimes and there's bills to pay. Lots of bills. Doesn't mean I don't wish I could move out, though. Barbara lives on her own. Gaara sent Clark a pointed look that he turned away from. Barbara is a data analyst and software developer who works for 3 companies remotely. Clark replied. You couldn't even keep your job for a month before getting violent. It wasn't that bad. You punched him so hard, his eyes popped out of their sockets. Clark reminded her. If the guy wasn't so terrified of you, he'd have pressed charges. I hated the job anyway. Gaara grumbled weakly. Who knew working at a fast food joint was the ultimate test of patience? She didn't. At least not until she failed the test by punching a customer who tried to toss his food in her face because she told him extra condiments weren't free. Naruto gave her a sympathetic smile. I think you just haven't found the right one yet. Thanks, Naruto. She grinned at him. I think we should start reading now. Diana interrupted with a small frown. She didn't have anything against Naruto talking with someone else, but the two hit it off a bit too fast for her liking. Oh, all right. Naruto nodded. A few seconds later, the room went silent and Diana opened the book. The screen lowered again as she did and she began to read. Chapter 5 Rest. Am I the only one a bit worried by that title? Barry chuckled awkwardly. Other Naruto went through the 5 stages of grief in the last chapter and now, rest. You don't think he... No. Tsunade cut the man off annoyedly. He wouldn't. Is that why you were so down when I showed up? Gaara asked the boy next to her who shook his head. No, it's the other me. You'll understand soon enough. Naruto pointed at the screen. A long but rather narrow and sinuous lake surrounded by tall and steep mountains on all sides. It was a fjord, a place of rarely seen beauty. Wow. Naruto stared at the screen amazedly. Yeah, it's always something to see. Clark smiled wistfully. I never get tired of staring at them while I'm flying by. I agree. Batman nodded. He had a yacht in a fjord in New Zealand that he liked to go to every few months and just relax for a day or two while Dick and Barbara handled Gotham. Diana felt a pang of homesickness as she stared at the book. Places like this were dime a dozen on Themyscira, and when she was a girl, she would visit them with her mother, who would tell her more peaceful tales than war stories as she taught her to fish. Even when grown, she still liked to go there, albeit alone. Her mother couldn't take time off from her duties anymore, much less disappear to spend hours alone with her. A simple wooden boat was floating gently on top of the water, and on the boat there was a red-eyed man with thick and dark whisker-like marks on his cheeks. Naruto. Gaara looked at the blonde sitting next to her and the one on the screen. Yeah, it's me. Naruto confirmed. I didn't know you liked to fish. Kakashi said. I don't, I prefer to garden. Naruto shook his head. In spite of being good at it, he didn't like fishing at all. It took too long and always reminded him of his earlier life. Poison Ivy sent you a friend request. Gaara joked. Naruto blinked. You mean the plant Poison Ivy or the eco-terrorist Poison Ivy? The eco-terrorist, wait, how do you know her? Gaara's eyes narrowed at the boy. We talked about her. Barry replied for him. Don't know why, but Naruto was very interested in knowing about her. Why? Gaara asked, not liking the idea of Naruto running after that crazy woman. Barry shrugged. I don't know, ask him. Naruto rolled his eyes. The first Hokage hadn't been able to control wood he didn't make out of his own chakra, and here was someone who could control all plant life and didn't have the first Hokage's limitation to wood alone. Of course he'd be curious. That, and she sounded like she was even more attuned to nature than he was. Despite his rather scary-looking face, there was an aura of peace and calmness around him. Yeah, you look a lot more stable than in the last few chapters. Clark agreed with the book. Naruto rolled his eyes. He was always stable. With a straw hat on his head and a fishing rod in his hands, the young man looked as though he was one with nature, an integral part of it. It was as though the paysage would be incomplete without him. Naruto smiled brightly. It was one of the perks of Senjutsu. The only downside to it was that animals tended to get too comfortable with him even when he was out of sage mode. He almost had a heart attack once when he woke up to see a snake asleep on his belly. Seeing you like it does adds to the serene vibe. Barry nodded. It's almost unreal. Yeah, the whole thing's like something out of an artwork. Hale said. It's like a Bob Ross painting, but with a fisherman in it. Oliver admitted. You do this often in your world, Naruto. I already said I don't fish. Naruto answered. And no, I rarely visit places like this. Most of the ones we had are destroyed, and the intact ones are the ones most people haven't found yet. Guess we have that in common. Gaara sighed. Every good place got polluted the moment everyone had knowledge and access to it. All of a sudden, with a quick jerk of his wrists, he pulled on the fishing rod in his hands. An enormous yellow fish, about 25 feet long, cast a shadow over the lake when it was yanked out of the water. It was even larger than the man's wooden boat. But there was no panic in the man's red eyes. How can he not be panicked? That's a monster fish, even by monster fish standards. Barry asked. Oliver snickered. Monster fish? You watched that show? It was probably what he was expecting to see. Dinah answered as she elbowed Oliver in his side. It doesn't look like his first time being here. Yeah, he definitely has something planned. Kakashi agreed with her. He's probably going to seal it away before it can drop or something, because he can't carry it to shore even if he does kill it. Clark grimaced at the sight of the fish. It reminded him of the one that bit his hand when he drew it out the first time Jonathan took him fishing. Sure, its teeth didn't break through the skin, but it didn't stop him from screaming his lungs out and crying hysterically as he tried to shake it off. Fishing sucked. With practiced movements, he threw 5 shurikens at the large fish still in mid-air. Where did those shuriken come from? Clark squinted at the screen. It's a secret. Kakashi chuckled. The 5 shurikens moved almost as though they were remote-controlled drones, not thrown projectiles, and they started flying in circles around the fish. Okay, I've learned some absurd stuff about you in the last 3 chapters, Naruto, but this is the height of it. Hale cried. What's the explanation for this now? Telekinesis? Kakashi and the other sharp-eyed members of the room narrowed their eyes at the screen. The silver-haired man wasn't sure if it was a trick of the light, but he could swear he saw light reflecting off what could only be wires. Newton's second law has been confirmed true, but Naruto is above all laws, and by proxy, his weapons are as well. Gaara smirked. Naruto grinned at the girl. I don't know what Newton's second law is, but I like that a lot. Of course you would. Tsunade sighed but internally admitted that it sounded cool. Then, the man clenched his fist and 5 very thin metallic wires appeared in his hands seemingly out of nowhere. They had been connected to the shurikens he'd thrown from the beginning. So that's how he made them move. Dinah said. It still doesn't explain everything. Batman frowned. The shuriken aren't moving like they're attached to anything. Kakashi agreed with the man. The only explanation for that would be if Naruto was using chakra as well to manipulate the wires. Before the fish even started to fall, the wires tightened around it and arcs of lightning traveled through the wires and zapped the large fish to the death. Oliver whistled as he watched the writhing fish. And here I thought electrocution was a relatively okay way to go. What made you think it was? Barry asked. I don't know, I just thought since the electricity fried all your nerves and stuff, you wouldn't feel anything. The archer shrugged. Not quite. Hale shook his head. It's very painful and might not even kill you at once, if at all. How do you know that? Oliver looked at him suspiciously. It's the only method of execution on a planet in Sector 3000. Hale looked like he was remembering something unpleasant. I got to see one take place. They had to stop and restart it 5 times because the guy wouldn't die. God, the screams. Oliver didn't say anything after that. Maybe he wasn't missing out on anything in space after all. The poor fish. Clark winced. Having been on the receiving end of many electrocutions, he knew exactly what it was suffering. Kakashi's eyes widened. Lightning? You can use lightning now? Naruto nodded. I'm no master, but I'm getting there. Batman's eyes narrowed. Wind and now lightning? Maybe element manipulation in general was a common ability they all shared. Why didn't you tell me? Kakashi asked the blonde who shrugged. It's not like doing so would mean anything. Naruto shrugged. I could have taught you to use it better. No offense, but you're not exactly the best teacher. Naruto frowned. Besides, B's already showing me a few techniques. He couldn't help the bit of guilt that welled up in him when he saw Kakashi's shoulders sag. I mean, it's not like you're a bad teacher, you're just not the right one for me. That bit wasn't false. Kakashi was able to teach Sasuke more because they shared common chakra natures and both possessed the Sharingan, but aside from the basics, there was nothing he could teach a boy whose chakra nature was the exact opposite of his own and also happened to be the one element he had no techniques for. What, so you electrocute the animals you catch too? Gaara asked Naruto when she saw he'd stopped talking with his teacher. No, it damages the muscles and burns it if you put too much into it. It's better to just use the normal way. Naruto shook his head. It was easier than doing it the standard way, but the benefits were a lot less. And what's that? She asked again. Naruto gave her an odd look. Why do you even want to know? Do you hunt or something? Nope, just curious. Gaara turned back to the screen. Naruto stared at her for a few seconds before turning back to the screen as well. Although the fish was now dead and that the lightning had dispersed by the time the fish dropped back into the water, its body was still twitching, disturbing the previously still surface of the lake. But soon, the fish became immobile, its nerves finally ceasing their activity. Ouch. Barry blew on a finger. You know, a part of me was expecting more dead fishes to float up to the surface like in that episode of The Simpsons. Remind me how you have a PhD again, Barry. Oliver folded his arms at the man. By not avoiding college to blow my parents' money on women and parties. Barry laughed at the man. Oh, fuck you. Oliver scowled at him. He hated people bringing that up when Dinah was around. And I went back to college, I'll have you know. But did you finish college? Barry smirked when he got no response. The fisherman tied the metallic wires connected to the fish on one end of the wooden boat and then he grabbed the paddles and started to slowly move towards the shore. On the shore, a giant bonfire was burning merrily and a 9-tailed fox that was as big as a horse was pacing around restlessly. I don't think I'll ever get over how he changes size so casually. Clark said. One moment, he's small enough to wrap around your neck and the next, he looks like he'll chomp your head off. I don't think I'll ever get over how much he likes food here. Naruto said. He was very glad Kurama only liked to sleep. The man and the fox in question were none other than Naruto and Kyuubi. They were in the middle of enjoying their holiday alone, on an unknown planet away from civilization. It was a planet from outside of the 3,600 sectors of the known universe protected by the Green Lantern Corps, in a star system located in the unknown void. No way. Hale shook his head. The Guardians checked. There's nothing beyond the known sectors. Nothing to your knowledge. Barry corrected him. The universe is infinite, Hale. For all we know, the nearest one outside the sectors is a billion light-years away, but they stopped only 1 light-year short of finding it. Alternate universe, you two. Things are different. Dinah shut them both down annoyedly. Was it too much to ask for Diana to be able to finish a page without getting interrupted? Its living conditions were nearly identical to the Earth, but there were no sentient creatures on this planet. There were only animals, and because of that, nature was rich and pristine. It was Naruto and Kyuubi's secret refuge, a place where they sometimes went to heal their souls and rest. A natural world devoid of technology and people. Kakashi mused. Sounds like Poison Ivy's paradise. Batman spoke. The woman would probably drop everything on Earth to live in such a place. 1 hour later, more than half of the enormous fish had already been cooked and eaten by the two of them. More exactly, it was Kyuubi that had eaten almost everything by himself. Lost in his greed and gluttony, he had even increased his size to that of an elephant so he could take bigger bites out of the fish and eat more at once. Jesus. Oliver grimaced at the sight of the fox. I'm glad we don't have anything like this in our world. We have no way of knowing if they exist. Batman said. Myths always depict fox spirits to be situated in Asia, one of the few places we don't have any members in. What about that Katana lady? I thought she was in the league. Gaara asked. She's an occasional ally, but her alignment mainly lies with the Suicide Squad. Batman said. He'd have extended an invite to the woman if it weren't for her methods and the fact that he'd be inadvertently giving Amanda Waller a degree of access to the league if she agreed. What's the Suicide Squad? Kakashi asked the man. An off-the-books team consisting of convicted criminals created by a government agency to do their dirty work in exchange for their freedom. Batman rubbed his head tiredly at the memory of his last confrontation with them at Arkham Asylum. How do they keep them in line though? Tsunade asked. I'm pretty sure they'd rather just run away than do what they're told, and they'd probably kill any agents sent to monitor them. They have tracking devices planted in their bodies that double as explosives that can be triggered remotely. Batman frowned. From what Harley told him, Amanda made an example of KG Beast in that manner. Doesn't sound all that bad to me. Kakashi shrugged. They succeed, you get what you want. They fail, you're rid of them and nothing they did can be linked to them. Batman scowled at the man. Criminals or not, his disregard for their lives didn't sit well with him. Katana lady? Does she make them or something? Naruto scratched his chin. Nah, she's got this katana she uses to fight. Gaara replied. Scary stuff considering it seals the souls of people it kills. The ninjas glanced at each other concernedly. That didn't sound good at all. That sounds terrifying. Naruto shook his head. Imagine dying and having to spend your entire afterlife in a sword. It sounded even worse than spending eternity fighting in the death god's belly. In contrast to the voracious fox, Naruto was sitting cross-legged on the grassy ground with his eyes closed. As he drew in the natural energy of the planet, he periodically exhaled a grayish-black cloud through his mouth. Natural energy? You're drawing power from the planet or something? Gaara asked. It's a bit more complex than that, but yeah. Naruto nodded. What's with the black smoke though? I've never seen that happen whenever you use nature energy. Gaara asked the boy who frowned. Sometimes the nature energy in certain places is tainted, usually by pollution or lack of plant life. When I take it in, it leaves impurities that I have to purge before they accumulate and cause problems. Naruto explained. He did it thing every time he made the gathered natural energy in places like Tankazugai and Omegakure. In spite of having constant rain, that village had one of the highest amounts of pollution he'd seen. Why do you take natural energy in those places then? Diana asked. It sounds counterproductive. Because it's a means of purifying those areas. Naruto answered. I take in as much taint as I can and go to expel it in forests for the plants to feed on. Hale frowned concernedly. It sounded awfully like the boy was purposely taking in carbon compounds. What exactly happens if you don't expel them and they reach a critical level? Illness, petrification, insanity, death. It depends really. Naruto shrugged nonchalantly. I sure as hell don't want to find out which might happen to me. Tsunade looked at him worriedly. She knew he had his duties, but it didn't make it easier on her to know what could happen to him if he messed up. Oliver chuckled lightly. I'm not going to lie, everything you said sounds like something you'd hear from a hippie trying to explain why they're hugging a tree. That also explains your fascination with poison ivy. Batman stared at the boy who groaned. She does something similar as well. Batman. Barry waved at the man. I'm not sure if you've been wearing that cowl for too long, but Naruto's not green. How can you be so sure? Batman pressed. He did say he can use illusions. He could be masking his true appearance. You can't be Seri, what the fuck? Naruto recoiled from Gaara when he saw her eyes glow white before she blushed brightly and shut them. Gaara. Clark shouted angrily. Unlike the others who were confused, he knew exactly what she did. He's not using an illusion. Gaara shook her head apologetically at Clark but refused to look at Naruto. What the hell was that? Naruto glared at her. It's something I can use to tell if people are masking their appearances. Gaara lied. She doubted he would take kindly to knowing she looked through his clothes and into his body. Naruto stared at her suspiciously. He'd seen many Dojutsu capable of seeing through Genjutsu, but her eyes bore an uncanny resemblance to an active Byakugan at that moment. I'm sorry, I should have asked you before checking. It was more of an impulse than anything. She apologized. It was her remorseful tone that made Naruto's suspicious glare lessen before he sighed. It's fine, just don't go around scanning people whenever the urge strikes you. He didn't believe all she did was check if he blanketed himself with illusion or not, but he'd give her the benefit of doubt for now. Diana quickly flipped to the next page before anyone could speak again. Once every few years Naruto came here to expel the impurities that his body accumulated by drawing in the natural energy of the planets that were inhabited by sentient species. Whenever he used his sage mode on such planets, he would draw on the polluted, infected energy of nature. It did not have an immediate effect on him if it was in small doses, but if left unattended, or if he drew too much of that infected energy at once, he could become like Jugo from the elemental nations and go berserk. Jugo? Kara raised an eyebrow. Naruto sighed at the visible madness in Jugo's amber orbs when an image of him appeared for everyone to see. I'm guessing it's not just your alternate self that knows him? Batman asked. Yeah, I knew him too. Jugo had the ability to gather nature energy without any physical consequences. Physical consequences? Dinah looked up at him. Yeah. For everyone else, myself included, we actually have to focus because the main issue is actually incorporating it into your body and balancing it with your own chakra. Naruto explained. What happens if you can't find a balance? Kara asked, already having an idea of the answer. You'd have to expel all the nature energy at once. Naruto said gravely. And I mean everything. Anything else would lead to petrification and consequently, death. The human body wasn't made to handle senjutsu. And this is what could happen to you? Barry asked worriedly. Do you think it's worth it? What happens if you're in a fight and need to gather nature energy but can't stay still for long enough to focus? Naruto smiled at the man. If I ever get pushed far enough to have to use Sage Mode, it means I'm doomed anyways. Damn. Oliver shook his head slowly. What about this Jugo? Clark pointed at the screen. You said he doesn't suffer physical consequences. Why does he look like this then? That was how his body worked. The nature energy gave him more abilities than it does any other user, but passive or not, you still need to be trained to use it. Naruto said. Jugo was not trained. And while it didn't have an effect on his body, his mind was a different matter. It was one of the very few things he genuinely resented Orochimaru for. The man knew next to nothing about senjutsu and most of his knowledge was based on his observations of Jugo who knew even less and has been forced to use it just to satisfy the man's curiosity. The nature energy, especially in somewhere tainted with as much death, anger and agony as Orochimaru's subterranean laboratories, had slowly corroded Jugo's mind until he became the way he had been. His moments of lucidity were few and even then, the slightest things drove him over the edge again. Batman narrowed his eyes. Naruto didn't respond. Did he get cured or something? Barry asked hopefully. Naruto sighed despondently. No. I wanted to help, I swear I did but I couldn't. I can't cure madness. He was too far gone, he was hurting too many people, he had to go. He shut his eyes as the image of Jugo's resigned face flashed in his mind again. It had never hurt him to kill someone as much as it did to kill Jugo. When he was lucid, the man was harmless, genuinely hated fighting, loved animals and was an all-round pleasant person. But that had barely been a percentage of the time anymore. In the span of just 3 months after the war and his disappearance, he had been reduced to a rabid beast that went around attacking small villages and mauling travelers, and when he was identified, the cages decided he was too dangerous for anyone other than a fellow senjutsu user to combat. Unfortunately, the only other senjutsu user happened to be him. In their final confrontation, he found a semi-lucid Jugo tending to a few rabbits in a forest after massacring a hamlet in rice country. In spite of the fresh blood on his hands staining their fur, the animals weren't afraid. A testament to the man's affinity for nature. In spite of not being in full control of himself, Jugo had been able to sense him coming with the same ease that he had used to track him. The real surprise had been that he had not only accepted his death, but saw it as a necessity. He had intended to finish him quickly with a Gododama, but the man's madness took over at the last minute and he was forced to go about it in a harsher way. Even killing him in that state felt more like putting down an injured deer than killing a mass murderer, and he still wished he could have helped him earlier. But life had taught him that he couldn't save everyone, and as much as he hated to admit it, it was better for most that Jugo was dead. None of the superheroes said anything, but it was clear they understood and didn't like it. It was Kakashi's uncharacteristic glare that stopped Batman from saying what he opened his mouth to say. Diana stared at the blonde sorrowfully. She could understand what he felt, having had to kill people she'd rather not. It was for the best, it really was, but even that didn't make it any easier to deal with. They took a break for half an hour before Naruto recovered enough for the reading to continue. When everyone gathered again. Or worse, instead of going berserk, he could turn into a statue if he lost control of the natural energy in his body. He had gone through that in the past once, so he was careful to not repeat his mistakes again. I love this planet. Such pure nature, such calmness, such peace. Naruto opened his eyes and said, I feel like any Sage Mode user would be able to prolong their lifespan by decades if not even centuries simply by living here. Nature energy prolongs your lifespan. Gaara asked the boy who seemed to have regressed back to the state she first found him in. Naruto looked at her. It speeds up regeneration, but not enough to actually increase your lifespan. But then again, the nature energy in that world is literally untainted since there aren't any people there. Who knows? Tsunade sighed. Hopefully, it also applied to the elemental nations. Most sentient living beings desired the companionship of other people. And Naruto was no different. Although he no longer got emotionally attached to persons and places, he still enjoyed living with people. The end result of eternal life. Diana said. Apathy. I don't think he's gone that far. Dinah noted. He still likes being around people, he just doesn't feel the need to form bonds anymore. At that rate, he'll grow tired of people before the end of the century. Diana argued. I doubt that. Barry cut in. It's the same way people enjoy going to clubs and parties and have the time of their lives even though they probably won't even leave their seats. Barry, you are that people. Oliver grinned at him. Dart. I can't be the only one like that. Barry folded his arms. Besides, I can't go as wild as you do in parties. I'm married. Perks of being single. Oliver's grin died when he saw Dinah raise an eyebrow. I meant being unmarried and having a fun-loving girlfriend. I'm not a party girl, Oliver. Dinah said. You've got one on the side that I need to know about? Hell no, pretty bird. He grinned nervously. She was the only woman he had or needed. Well, you did text me once that I was your last hoe. Dinah tapped under her chin. Barry snorted with laughter. Damn it, Dinah. I told you it was autocorrect. I wrote hope. Oliver began to sweat. He didn't want to confess to drunk texting her that night. Gaara couldn't help laughing at the man's predicament. He liked interacting with others, joking around, visiting restaurants, going to movie theaters and sometimes he liked even to just go to a bazaar and watch people haggle and argue with each other for prices. I like to do that too. Naruto nodded. Considering your current situation, I doubt you'll be able to do that anymore. Kakashi said. His current situation? Gaara asked what was everyone's mind. Well, Naruto here is famous. Kakashi reached over to ruffle the annoyed boy's hair. So much that people travel from halfway across the continent to our village in the hopes of seeing him. That's very famous. Clark muttered, knowing how that failed. Lois told him Metropolis' population boom was because of people wanting to see him in action at least once. Gaara stared at the boy. Call her shallow, but she'd always wondered what it was like to date a celebrity. Although people had a very dark side to them, they had beautiful parts too. And the more he lived, the more Naruto understood that these two sides of people were like the two sides of a coin. One could not exist without the other. That's true. Dinah said. But people aren't exactly two sides of a coin. There's more to a person than good and bad. I think we all know that, Dinah. Kakashi smiled at the woman, not wanting to listen to her talk about the human psyche. He got enough of that from Ibuki. Well, forgive me for wanting to share a bit of knowledge. She huffed half-heartedly. As Naruto was sunken deeply into his philosophical thoughts about people's nature, a very loud beeping sound came from a small distance away. It came from the combat suit that he had left in a hut that he and his shadow clones had built when they arrived on this planet a few weeks before. Now, he was wearing casual clothes, a pair of brown pants and a light blue t-shirt. He had no weapons or any other devices on him except for the armband that contained the shurikens and ninja wire that he used in fishing. Brown and blue? Not a good combo. Oliver shook his head. How would you know so much about colors combos? You wear all green. Barry raised an eyebrow at the archer. Grove Street for life. Oliver raised an arm. Besides, I model. Oh, okay. He sighed in annoyance. These guys don't know how to give up. There's always more money to be made, Naruto. Barry said with a deep voice. You said it right this time. Naruto smiled at the man who returned his smile. He went to his hut and took out a wristwatch. Then, he covered his face with his hand and made a downward motion with it. A white Anbu fox mask appeared on his face and his strawberry blonde hair became bright gold while his red eyes became baby blue. Then, he tapped the screen of the wristwatch with a finger and a hologram appeared on top of it. It was a human-sized humanoid rat. A sentient rat. Dinah blinked. I've seen weirder, but wow. I wouldn't let any of them hear you saying that if I were you. Hale shook his head. Most races are sensitive about things like that. You guys are taking this awfully well. Clark noticed that the ninjas were unfazed by the sight of a human-sized rat. We have lots of talking animals. Tsunade said. I work with talking slugs. I work with talking dogs. Kakashi joined in. Naruto smiled. I work with talking toads. Toads and slugs, EWW. Gaara rubbed her arms. Don't like them much? Tsunade didn't look impressed. They're not as awesome as yours are in our world. Gaara replied quickly. A high-pitched voice came out. Seriously, Mr. Uzumaki, where have you been these past 4 months? You didn't give us an update on your location and most of the time we couldn't even reach you through the light wave. We've been so worried that 4 months is a long time for a vacation. Naruto frowned at his other. If all he did was fish and relax during that 4 months, he'd get rustier than a metal tool left in a swamp. I think your other just hung up on him. Gaara snickered. Classic. The hologram of the talking rat abruptly disappeared when Naruto cut off the transmission. But 2 seconds later, the wristwatch started beeping again. Got to give him props, he's persistent. Clark said. You constantly for 4 months and even though the first thing the guy did when you finally reached him was to hang up on you, you still called back. Hey. Why did you hang up me? Huh? Here I am, all concerned about your well-being and that's how you treat me? You ingrate. Yeah, Naruto. Oliver teased. Don't be an ingrate. At least listen to him before hanging up. Dinah rolled her eyes with a small smile. She couldn't say anything about that, she did it a lot too. If the mask didn't cover his face, one would be able to see that a vein started to pulse on Naruto's forehead. Alright. I'll cut the transmission and switch off the lightwave receptor. No, wait. The red man yelled frantically. He calmed down when he saw Naruto did not follow up on his threat and said unhappily. Sheesh, you're as grumpy as ever. No pleasantries, no joking around, nothing. He's been calling you for 4 months to offer you a job. Barry said. The least you can do is be polite. Oh, I'm big on pleasantries, but I can't help but feel I just don't like this guy. Naruto replied, ignoring Kakashi's cough. You are? Tsunade gave the blonde a wide-eyed stare. Don't sound so surprised, I'm the village diplomat. Get to the point already. Naruto couldn't help shouting. I do joke around with most people but you're just so irritating. Ugh, why do I even put up with you? Because he's good at what he does. Hale shrugged. It's the only reason a guy would put up with a plug he hates. A plug? Barry snorted. You've been watching those YouTube videos again, haven't you? Yeah. That ratchet guy does good stuff. Hale nodded. Doesn't he use slurs in all his videos? Oliver narrowed his eyes. Is that where you learned about that gun stuff? No, it was from a rap song. Dinah sighed. Ugh, rap. A smug expression appeared on the rat man's face at the blonde's outburst. It's simple, because I'm the best at what I do. That's how it is and that's how it goes. Hale nodded smugly. Let me guess, another rap song? Barry asked. Easy? Yeah. I've been listening to all the guy's tracks. I hope he drops another album soon though. Hale nodded. He's been dead since 1994. Oliver shot the man down. Hale's expression dampened. Damn. Naruto let out a snort but did not contradict him. Look, I know you said you need some time on your own, but we've got a huge job on our hands this time. To be more exact, 2 huge jobs. With the payment from these 2 bounties, you'll probably be able to even buy a fleet of ships strong enough to take over a planetary system. Or legally buy a small-sized terraformed moon. Everyone went silent. That was a lot of money. And all he has to do is take 2 people? Clark asked disbelievingly. Who's he going to hunt? Darkseid. Knowing how things are, I wouldn't be surprised if it was something along those lines. Hale sighed. The higher the bounty, the more likely it was someone infamous. When Naruto remained silent, the rat man said in exasperation. I hate it so much when I can't gauge your reaction because of that creepy mask of yours. That's the point of wearing a mask. Naruto said. Hides your facial expressions and identity. Batman nodded. I meant a full mask. Naruto corrected himself. I don't know why you don't cover your mouth too. That's like asking to get punched in the mouth. I'm sure he has a plan to avoid that. Oliver flashed the vigilante an acidic smile. He has a plan for everything. Everybody has a plan till they get punched in the mouth. Naruto argued. Dinah grinned. Apparently, Tyson's words applied in other worlds too. After a few seconds of silence, Naruto spoke. I told you I'm retired. At least for now. I don't really have a need for money. I have enough money to live in peace for a long time. I don't care about conquering planetary systems and whatnot either. As for owning a moon. He trailed off and started to chuckle. He has a private planet. I don't think a moon would motivate him to come out of retirement. Gaara said. He already had a planet twice as large as the Earth with perfect living conditions and nobody to mess up its nature and ecosystems. It was like a paradise. What was a mere moon compared to that? Come on, just this once? I really need you to take this job, don't do me like this, man. The red man almost begged. Now it's a bit suspicious how insistent he is on Naruto taking the job. Tsunade said. Kakashi agreed. calling for 4 months without giving up and still trying to beg him to take the job even after he said he was retired. It reeked of an ulterior motive. It's almost as if this job was meant for him. Gaara frowned. Or it's meant for him. Batman narrowed his eyes. It could very well be a track designed specifically for the boy's alternate self. Naruto covered the forehead of his mask with his right hand and sighed, not knowing whether to laugh or to cry. What did you do this time? Did you gamble your wife and your kids and lost again? Wait, what? Barry blinked. He gambled his wife and kids away? Gaara was just as surprised. I thought that stuff only happened in movies. It doesn't, Gaara. It really doesn't. Tsunade shook her head. She'd seen it happen dozens of times in the many gambling houses she visited over the years. From the way you said it, I'm guessing this is your first time helping him settle his debt. Oliver told Naruto, who sighed. So I'm his go-to guy when he gets himself in situations like this. Wonderful. It was not a joke, nor an exaggeration what Naruto asked. The red man in the hologram was a degenerate gambler, someone that actually had really gambled his wife and 6 kids and lost them in a game. Naruto glanced at Tsunade, who caught his look and glared back at him. Granted, it was proven that the other party had been cheating and he didn't truly lose his family in the end, but the fact that he was willing to gamble away his family for money spoke volumes of what type of person he was. I'm surprised he even steal a family in the first place. Dinah shook her head. If she ever saw Oliver became a chronic gambler, she'd leave him without a second thought. Yeah, you think they'd leave him after he gambled them away once? Gaara nodded. Maybe they just don't have any way to survive without him. Naruto offered. Chances are, the rat guy's the breadwinner. That'd be unfortunate. Gaara shook her head pityingly. The rat man fidgeted as if he did not know how to explain himself. I took the payment in advance for those jobs and I've already spent that money. But don't worry, getting that money back is not an issue. At all. I swear on my honor. Diana paused to laugh. A gambler's honor. What a joke. He must have thought he'd get you on it in record time or something. Gaara shook her head. I know, right. He hasn't even reached me and he's already spent all the money. He's lucky they haven't tried to get it back yet. Naruto snorted. A gambler's honor. PFFT. Naruto inwardly said but stayed silent and let him continue. The problem is that 1 month has already passed since I accepted those bounties on your behalf and they told me they don't need their money back. Either we complete the mission or they will send the Gordanians after me. Hale's face soured. What are Gordanians? Naruto asked. They are intergalactic slavers allied with the Citadel. Hale scowled. Recently, they've taken to warmongering and with the backing of the Citadel, conquering planets. They're responsible for the fall of Tamaran. Batman paid attention to that last part. Robin, who had gone to Jump City, told him about getting a teammate who called herself a Tamaranian and claimed to have escaped a race called Gordanians. Apparently, she wasn't lying. Naruto felt the beginning of a huge headache. Anything involving the Gordanians was going to be nasty. They were infamous for being a warmongering race hell-bent on conquering and enslaving other planets. Explain. Expand on that. Oliver snickered. I don't think now's a good time for that. Naruto looks angry. Clark pointed at the screen. Even though his face was covered by a mask, it was clear the bounty hunter wasn't pleased. That single word made the rat man tremble. He understood that Naruto was slowly getting pissed and he also knew better than most people that as easygoing and amiable Naruto seemed to be, it was a terrible thing when he got truly angry. I know how that is. Kakashi nodded. He could count the number of times he'd seen Naruto angry on one hand, but each time it happened, he left a trail of destruction in his wake. A few minutes later, when the rat man was done explaining and anxiously waiting for the verdict, Naruto asked. So, the first job you accepted was from the Saiyans. They want me to capture someone for them to experiment on him. Tell me, Rui Nak, when have I ever accepted any jobs from those bastards? He and the Kyuubi are the last of their world. A job from the Saiyans also doubles as a trap for them. Hale folded his arms. They use money to bait people into taking jobs for them and deliver whatever it is to their doorstep so they can take both the goods and the person. And people still take jobs from them? Gaara asked disbelievingly. They should learn from the mistakes of the ones who came before them. Money blind the eyes, Gaara. Naruto said. When the money is worth the risk, you tend not to think too much about the second part. Mr. Uzumaki, please don't get angry. The rat man, now named Rui Nak, said quickly, desperately trying to stop Naruto from getting angrier at him than he already was. I've checked the past of that bounty target. I spent a lot of resources for that, but I did find out that he's caused several world wars and genocides in his home world. Whatever the Saiyans will do to him, he fully deserves it. Several world wars and genocides? Oliver frowned. That's extreme for one person. The real question is how he didn't get arrested for it. Hale said. If it's public knowledge enough to make it to a bounty description, it means they've got concrete evidence of his guilt. It could be that he's just very well protected. Barry offered. Nothing can protect you from solid evidence, Barry. Dinah shook her head. It's why even the most powerful men try to get rid of it. Feeling that Naruto was mollified by his explanation, Ruinak continued. As for the second job, I took it especially because it was connected to the first one. The king of Tamarin sold his youngest daughter to the Gordanians as a slave for the sake of peace. Gaara looked revolted as did most of the others. Now that's just wrong. Is it, Gaara? Tsunade asked. Sometimes, sacrifices have to be made for the good of the world, regardless of what it is. The man has even less choice in the matter since he's the king. That's the burden of leadership. Diana nodded. Her mother banishing her from Themyscira was one of such examples. It was to maintain order in the form of proving that no one was exempt from the laws, not even her own daughter. It's admirable, but in the end, it didn't matter. Hale said. The Gordanians came back a few months anyways and Tamarin fell. But the Queen of Tamarin, his wife, secretly put out a bounty to rescue her daughter. My sources tell me that the Gordanians demanded the princesses of the royal family of Tamarin at the request of the Saiyans. Of course they did. Oliver scowled. League member or not, he'd put an arrow or a dozen into a Saiyan if he ever saw one. They could have also just taken her to sell. Hale explained. Tamaranians were rarely found outside their planet and as such, they were still considered exotic enough to fetch a high price. The princess, especially the youngest one, would fetch a higher price than the older. Why would the younger be costlier than the OO? I get it now. Gaara shuddered. Kakashi shut his eyes. He'd seen how things were in the skin market, having been hired by both slavers and liberators. It was a lot worse than how Hale was saying it. So you mean to say I'll be hitting two birds with one stone? Ruinak nodded vigorously. Exactly. You can capture the target of the bounty offered by Saiyans and after you hand him over to them, you can also raid their base and rescue the princess of Tamarin. I'm sure they'd reward you for returning their princess to them. Hale told Naruto, who nodded. Maybe, but the elation kind of falls through when they realized her return would mean the Gordanians would assume they reneged on the deal and come back to continue their attack. Oh. Yeah. Naruto hummed in thought. I'll need you to send me all the data you have on the bounty offered by the Saiyans. I will be the one to decide if the target really is a scumbag or not. Absolutely. The rat man said eagerly. It's definitely, most assuredly and undoubtedly not a trap, I promise. Oliver mimicked the rat's voice, getting laughs from most of the occupants in the room. A few hours later, Naruto was sitting next to a campfire with his back resting against a tree as he read on a tablet the information that Ruinak had sent him in regards to not only the Saiyans' bounty but also about the current state of affairs in Tamarin, the Gordanians' attack and the enslaved princess. This guy really is the best at what he's doing, but sometimes I feel like I want to strangle him to death, Naruto said in annoyance. There's no worse feeling. Oliver agreed. What do you mean by that? Clark asked the man suspiciously. It's kind of like dealing with a lawyer who obviously wants to bone your mum but not being able to fire him because you're knee-deep in lawsuits and the guy rarely ever loses the case. Oliver explained, and when he saw the whole room staring at him, added. It's just an analogy. Right, Naruto nodded skeptically. Right. Ruinak was an information broker, one of the best, if not the best, in the galaxy. Naruto was not the only bounty hunter in partnership with him. Even Lobo took bounties from him once in a while. Ruinak was not subordinated to anyone. He was a free agent, simply selling information to anyone who paid him. In spite of his despicable morals and degenerated persona, as a businessman, Ruinak was excellent. I am Jack's grudging respect. Clark's chuckle died out when he saw Batman staring at him. Even you have to admit that your mind went to Fight Club when you read that. You hate American Psycho, but you like Fight Club? Barry asked disbelievingly. Jack isn't a murderer. Clark argued. No, he's just an anarchist with split personality disorder who beats himself up, looks at his own life from a third-person perspective and would have killed himself if the gun didn't have a blank in it. Barry rolled his eyes. And Bateman's a materialistic, homicidal narcissist who thought his co-worker had to die for having a better business card and has a morning routine out of one of those fake a day in the life of a 24-year-old CEO videos on the internet. Clark folded his arms. I don't know what you're talking about, but you two need to shut up and let Diana read. Tsunade glared at the two men who went quiet. He was an extremely well-connected person. There was not an inhabited planetary system or prison planet in the 3,600 sectors of the known universe where he did not know a guy or two. For a mercenary, that's a dream partnership. Kakashi said. No wonder your other puts up with him. He could go out of business completely if he didn't. I don't see how. Gaara didn't understand. For someone that connected, all he has to do is give a reason why you shouldn't be hired and you'd get blacklisted from pretty much everywhere. Hale said. That's your whole career gone all because one guy said something bad about you. I don't think my other cares much. Naruto said. He's retired. And you don't need a good reputation to go bounty hunting. He made it his job to learn all about the latest bounties posted by the major powers of the galaxy and contact the bounty hunters that might be interested in them. The bounty hunters were happy to get a juicy job. The clients were happy to have their problems solved, and Ruinak himself was happy to get a hefty commission from the bounty hunters and even from the clients themselves if they contacted him directly. The Red Man was not the sole information broker operating on an intergalactic level, but he was among the best. He put in his thumb and pulled out a plum and said, "What a good boy am I." Barry rhymed. It's surprisingly fitting here. Dinah had to admit. Where's the rhyme from? Clark asked. It didn't sound familiar at all. It was made by Candace. Oliver answered. Barry covered his mouth with his hand to hide his grin. Who's Candace? Clark frowned. Candace dick fit in your mouth. Boyyy. Oliver stopped when Clark's eyes glowed red. I'm sorry, I couldn't help it. Rah. Barry had no such reservations and ran away before Clark could react. Naruto's eyes widened at the man's speed. He only barely saw the man's trail. I hate that joke so much. Clark snarled at where the speedster had once been. It was bad enough that Booster Gold once got him with a D's nuts one in front of the Metropolis press and nobody let him live it down. He's definitely not gonna get even one coiner's commission from my reward after the shit he pulled. Kyuubi was curled up very close to the fire in his tiny form as a fox cub and yawned lazily every once in a while. You could have just ignored him and not taken the job. But you couldn't help playing the hero again, eh? Kyuubi jabbed at him. The hero complex rears its ugly head. Tsunade smirked at the boy who groaned. I don't have a hero complex, Granny. I just like saving people. Naruto said tiredly. Kara nudged him with an elbow. Don't worry, you'd fit right in with us with that attitude. Tsunade's smirk dropped off her face at the girl's words. Naruto wasn't leaving to deal with another world's problems if she could help it. Naruto glared at the fox and retorted. What hero? I'm getting paid for it. Not to mention, we've worked together for so many years. Extortion, extortion. Clark repeated, keeping his gaze solely on Naruto who ignored him. Keep telling yourself that. Seeing Naruto becoming silent at his words, Kyuubi asked. So? Where are we going now? To Earth. Batman felt a pit form in his stomach as realization set in. How come it hadn't clicked earlier? He's going after Vandal Savage. You've got to be kidding me, Vandal Savage? Barry asked, having returned. He's going to have a hell of a time finding that guy. Yeah, and he'd have to turn the Earth inside out to find that man. Oliver understood Batman's worry. Savage won't let himself get found that easy, and even when he does, he won't go without a fight. He'd nuke the whole continent if he has to. Oh, I see why it's a bad thing now. What would the Saiyans want from Earth? Kyuubi raised his head from his front paws and asked, appearing as though he was very intrigued. Apparently, it's someone who has lived for nearly 50,000 years. He's the one who had caused the two deadliest wars in Earth's history and numerous other atrocities. A human named Vandal Savage. I think the Saiyans will dissect him to the last atom to see what makes him tick, what gave him immortality when everyone else on Earth lives up to a century at most. I can't believe I'm saying it, but I hope Naruto gives him to them. Kara said, earning a shocked look from Clark. I know, but if he's as bad as you say he is, don't you think he's better off dead or in the hands of people who'll see to it that he won't leave an operating table? Clark sighed, not wanting to argue with her. Sometimes he forgot that Kara had been raised on Krypton for the purpose of joining the military. She wouldn't always see things the way he and the others did. It was good enough that she still valued life and didn't see humans as lesser species like he was sure most others would have. Keep in mind that if the Saiyans can get the root of his immortality, they'll use it on themselves. Hale said. You really think it's better for immortal Saiyans to be running around? Didn't think we'd get back to Earth so soon. Not that I have anything against it, mind you. Kyuubi said, and the 9 fluffy tails at his back started wagging. Yeah, he probably just wants to eat and make Diana pet him again. Naruto scoffed. Well, you won't hear me complaining if he approaches me. Diana smiled. I swear he's not actually the way he is in this book. Naruto shook his head. No matter how much time he had to process it, it still felt like he was the one imagining it. Naruto grinned when he looked at the tiny fox's unveiled excitement. Oh, you look excited. I wonder why? My bet is that you can't wait for that woman to give you some belly rubs again, he said snidely. What else would it be? Clark asked. Probably to trick Batman into paying for his eating spree again. Dinah joked. Batman sighed. His poor other self. He just hoped Dick and Alfred in that world didn't hear about it. Why you? Kyuubi sputtered at the unexpected verbal attack. What does that have to do with anything? Oh really now? Then tell me, what's the tail wagging for? He might be aroused. Barry said. What the fuck, Barry? Hale shouted. First was that existential void stuff and now this. Diana grimaced. She hoped Barry was wrong. Kyuubi bit on his own treacherous tails in embarrassment. At the memory of the blissful feeling from the Amazon princess' gentle caresses, his tails had involuntarily started wagging on their own, out of his control. Kyuubi did not understand himself why he had liked it that much. He did not know that it was because of the gift that the Olympian goddess of the hunt and wilderness had blessed Wonder Woman with. I'm telling you, a gift like that shouldn't make him this way. Naruto insisted. This is Kurama. If he were awake, he'd be pissed to see this. I can tell you're just jealous you can't touch his tail, but I can. Diana grinned at him. He clearly couldn't comprehend how powerful a god's blessings could be. Oh, your maturity is unparalleled. Naruto rolled his eyes. I mean, I am a bit jealous, but come on. What are we, children? If only the people from our homeworld could see this, the mighty Kyuubi no Kitsune, the strongest Biju in existence, wagging his tails like a dog and purring like a cat from a simple belly rub. You were so cute. So adorable. Wahahaha. It's more disturbing than anything, to be honest. Kakashi said. This fox is considered to be the embodiment of anger, hatred and everything negative. It's said to thrive off negativity. Gangland. Clark, Barry and Oliver said at the same time. What? Kakashi blinked. Never mind, it's a thing in our world. Barry waved him off. But as he laughed out loud, Naruto suddenly jumped up to his feet and, immediately after, he leapt into the tree behind him. From there, he broke into a mad dash, jumping from one tree to another as quickly as he could. Damn, I've seen bullet trains slower than that. Oliver stared at the screen surprisedly. So you can run on trees and branches? Kara asked Naruto, who nodded. She inwardly screamed. Barbara had to be here. That's because a gigantic nine-tailed fox, the mighty Kyuubi in his original form as a tailed beast, had suddenly smashed the spot he had been sitting on before with his immense claws. Hundreds of feet tall and wide, and 9 tails that were just as huge as his main body. Even the enormous trees of that virgin planet were dwarfed by his gigantic size. Now, he was a behemoth. Jesus Christ! Oliver screamed and jumped off his seat. Naruto and Dinah cackled at the man. You think that's huge? That's not even his final form. Naruto grinned. I'm suddenly a lot more afraid of the fox than I was a few minutes ago. Barry whispered. Join the club. Kara agreed with him. Naruto. Don't let me get my hands on you. Kyuubi's demonic roar rang, and the shockwaves of his roar flattened to the ground the forest around him for miles. In his original form, the nine-tailed demon fox truly was like a natural disaster, a calamity. But in front of that terrible might, obnoxious laughter could be heard in the distance, just as loud as his roar. Naruto had purposely infused his chakra in his voice, to make sure that the fox heard it. Diana chuckled as she closed the book. A truly fearsome fox he is. Damn right I am. Naruto jumped as the familiar voice echoed in his head. Kurama, you're finally awake. Obviously. And imagine my surprise to see you stuck in a room with strangely dressed people. Who are they? Naruto ignored the strange looks he was getting and leaned back against the seat and closed his eyes. Want to come out and talk to them yourself? A low growl sounded in his head. I'd rather not. Come on, they're cool. And they all know your name now. There was silence before Kurama spoke again. And how do they know that? The fox's voice was calm, but Naruto could feel the murderous rage hidden beneath the question. It was written in the book. The same one Diana was reading. It'll take too long to explain within the seal. You're sure you don't want to come out and catch up with everything? Kurama went silent again for a few moments, speaking again. Let me out. Naruto sighed and his gut glowed brightly, alarming everyone before a small, glowing fox appeared and became as large as a horse before the glow died out and 9 tails became visible. Diana's eyes widened at the sight. It was Kurama, right here with them. But Naruto was right, the fox wasn't like how he was in the book. Where the one in the book was largely docile, this Kurama radiated nothing but malice towards everyone. A malice that made the once jovial atmosphere go tense as everyone save for Naruto, prepared to fight. Well everyone, meet my partner. Naruto purposely avoided saying the fox's name so as not to irritate him further. I'm honored to finally meet you, Kurama. Diana was the first to speak. Kurama wasn't sure why he suddenly felt as calm as he did when the woman spoke to him, but he didn't like it one bit. It reminded him too much of the cursed eyes for his comfort. The feeling isn't mutual. He snarled, surprising her. I should kill you for saying my name. It's not her fault, Kurama. She wouldn't know how you're about it. Naruto rubbed the fox's fur. Kurama grew larger and Naruto, getting the message, took his hand off. The fox stayed silent, but continued to glare at the woman who returned it with a calm look of her own. After nearly a whole tense minute, he snorted and looked at Naruto. Tell me everything. Okay guys, I think I speak for everyone when I say this Kurama is nothing like his alternate self. Oliver glanced nervously at the fox that growled at him, exposing teeth that looked capable of biting through diamond. It had hurt him, wonderful. Naruto, having noticed Batman call the archer into the gathering, gently but firmly led Kurama away from them with Diana following after him. The group watched the two leave before someone spoke again. What gave that away? Him snapping at Diana? Dinah rolled her eyes. His overall hostility. He looked like he'd maul us for saying his name. Oliver responded, ignoring her sarcasm. In all fairness, Naruto already warned us about that. Barry pointed out. We should have known from the start that he wouldn't be all snark and gluttony like his alternate self. Doesn't make it any much better, man. Hale shook his head slowly. He might just be pissed about his name, but you saw how he looked at us. If Naruto wasn't there, he'd have probably tried to kill us. What's going to happen if something triggers him again, maybe even worse than this one? It was a really good thing the fox wasn't in his world. A lantern ring would have found him in the blink of an eye, assuming the butcher himself didn't try making him into a vessel. The thought of the mountain-sized beast being piloted and empowered by the embodiment of anger made him shudder. Hale's right. Batman spoke. He might have calmed now, but next time might be worse. Naruto doesn't have him on as tight a leash as we thought he'd be. Because he's not a pet. Clark frowned at the man. If it wasn't that he's paranoia. And he's no mindless beast either. Barry agreed with the Man of Steel. It's our fault for not listening to him. True. Batman admitted. But it doesn't make him any less dangerous. We need something to make sure he doesn't attack us in case of any slip-ups. Like saying his name even though we've been told not to? Barry scoffed. Like that. Batman ignored the speedster. Seeing as how he's out now, Naruto won't be able to warn us about anything in time. So what, you're suggesting we subdue him now? Clark's frown deepened. No, I'm suggesting we stop him from attacking us at all. Batman looked at Martian Manhunter, who returned his stare blankly. Clark finally understood. You can't be serious. You're suggesting brainwashing a being you just met. He glared at the man. It's not brainwashing, Clark. Manhunter's just going to plant a few suggestions in his mind to keep him from reacting as aggressively as he did this time. Batman explained. Which in itself is unnecessary, Batman. Clark said. You're just being paranoid. My paranoia, as you call it, has saved us all many times. Batman frowned at him. But right now, it's just unfounded, Bats. Barry shook his head. We're heroes, we don't toy with people's minds like that. Hale took that as his cue to leave. He wasn't getting dragged into whatever clusterfuck this would lead to. And even if we agree to it, what makes you think the fox won't notice Manhunter trying to get in his mind? Dino asked. And if he fails, what do you think's going to happen? We'll just have to make sure Manhunter doesn't fail. Batman said. If we can keep him distracted enough, I doubt he'd be able to notice any attempted entry into his mind. The others could tell Manhunter was trying to get in their heads and they were as distracted as could be. Dinah pointed out. I don't see much reason why the fox would be different. Maybe because he's an animal? Oliver shrugged. An animal from their world. A world where animals can talk and fight alongside the soldiers. Dinah scowled at the lantern. That wouldn't be possible if they didn't have similar training to the people they fight with, or at the very least, are more evolved than ours. We won't know until we try. Batman said. And if Manhunter fails? Dinah asked. We'll cross that bridge if we get there. I'm with Batman on this one. Oliver nodded. I don't fancy having my face chewed off just because I said something I didn't know I shouldn't have. Dinah scowled at the archer. Of course you don't. Well, count me out. Hey, pretty bird, come on, you know it's not like that. Oliver followed after his girlfriend. I'm not going to be a party to this either. Barry shook his head and walked away, leaving only Clark and Batman. Dart. I'm not sure if what Kakashi said to you a while back stuck, Batman, but it's the truth. Clark frowned at his friend. At this rate, you'll only end up antagonizing all of them. Batman sighed inwardly. You felt whatever it is that Fox did, Clark. We all did, even the others, but you don't see us all dwelling on it, do you? I don't, and that's the problem. There's no problem aside from you not being able to accept that some things are not yours to fix or control, Batman. Clark rubbed his forehead. They'd had this conversation far too many times for his liking, and honestly, it was getting frustrating to have to talk the man out of trying to enact his morally wrong and often unnecessary contingencies. So you're suggesting we all just sit with a murderous fox with its temper on a hair-thin line? No, I'm suggesting you leave the fox to the person who actually knows him. Someone who can do more to calm him down than brainwashing him into becoming docile. They're partners, aren't they? Batman glanced at Naruto, who was gesturing between Diana and Kurama, probably introducing them both. How can we be sure Naruto won't be the one to sick him on us? Clark rolled his eyes. Batman only got like this when he was running out of plausible excuses. If that's really all you're going on, Batman, it's not enough. What happened to the benefit of doubt agreement we had? It's enough that you're keeping me from trying to probe any further into them, Clark. But I'm not going to just sit and watch a creature capable of that, just stay with us without having any fail-safes in place. Batman frowned. Clark stared at the man for a few moments. Dart, you weren't going to have Jayon just plant a few suggestions in his mind, were you? We need to know something about it, Clark, and by proxy, the rest. Batman said. Even better if we have a degree of control over it too. We? Clark laughed quietly. No, there's no we in this. If there was, you'd have asked Diana for her opinion, but you didn't because you already know what she'd say and you don't want to hear that because you know she'd be right. Batman didn't respond. For once, Bruce, Clark stressed the man's real name, causing the vigilante to glare at him. Leave people be. We all see the danger in them, but we're not exactly harmless people ourselves. We're not contract killers and mercenaries, Clark. Batman said acidly. But we're just as much unknowns to them as they are to us, and unlike you, none of them have been trying to form contingency plans against us since we arrived here. Clark argued. Yeah, I get why you're cautious of the fox, we all are. But just trust Naruto to keep him in check, okay? You know I can't do that. Clark sighed resignedly. Knowing Bruce, he'd have Jayon try entering Kurama's mind anyway whether they wanted him to or not. It was just a matter of when he did it. Whatever happens is on you, Bruce. Only you. Bruce sighed as Clark walked away from him. He wasn't surprised by how the conclusion to their conversation turned out. The real surprise would have been if Clark had agreed with him, but it didn't make it any less displeasing. He looked at the fox that was still scowling at a confused-looking Diana. It didn't escape his notice how its tails slowly moved in the air like serpents searching for prey. They looked long and strong enough to attack a person with. No, to kill with. His eyes narrowed. So what if nobody agreed with him? It was his countermeasures that saved all their lives multiple times, even the ones they didn't approve of. The fox was dangerous. It was something everyone knew, but unlike the others, he wasn't about to just pretend they didn't stand the risk of getting attacked at any moment. No good being was capable of projecting whatever aura it was that fox had given out. He turned to look at Jayon, who eyed him from a distance. The Martian, getting the message, connected their minds together. When he felt the familiar sensation of conflicting thoughts, he nodded. Do it. Jayon stared at him for a few moments before nodding back and closing his eyes. Dart? And that's when you woke up? Kurama stared at Naruto but kept Diana within his field of vision. If I were not seeing with my own eyes, I'd say you've gone mad or you inhaled that white powder again. Naruto chuckled, ignoring Diana's raised eyebrow at the white powder part. It's a good thing you're here then. Kurama snorted and turned back to look at Diana. And this is the woman my other self approves of? Diana tried not to squirm as the fox stared at her as if looking at something beyond her appearance. The last time she felt this uncomfortable was when she'd stood before one of Apollo's oracles. He's taken a liking to her, yes. Naruto tapped Kurama's ear with a finger, prompting the organ to slap his hand away. Trust me, she's a really nice person if you talk to her. Kurama didn't doubt that, but it didn't mean he really wanted to give her one. With Naruto, he didn't have much of a choice, but beyond the boy, he had no desire to interact with any other humans, not even those from another world. So long as they had the same blood flowing through their veins, humans would always be the same. But at the same time, he knew Naruto wouldn't stop trying to get him to speak with the woman unless he agreed now, so he chose to spare himself the annoyance. I'll be the judge of that. Naruto smiled brightly. Well, Diana, this is my friend and partner, Kurama. I already know that. Diana said. I know, but this is a reintroduction so you two can start off on better terms. Kurama snorted. No number of introductions would change a first impression. Right? Diana nodded. It's an honor to meet you, Kyuubi. Naruto has said nothing but good things about you. You already know my name, so say it. Kurama's found that his reply didn't come out as unpleasant as he'd intended. It was like most of his animosity towards the woman had been washed away, much to his annoyance. The woman was definitely something. Kurama then. I apologize for, how I addressed you the first time. Diana smiled half-heartedly, having no idea how to placate a talking animal, much less one Lady Artemis' blessing didn't seem to have much, if any effect on. What's there to apologize for? Did you know not to address me by name? Kurama frowned. Yes. Diana admitted. Naruto warned us against it before you appeared. But you did it anyway. It was a mistake on my part. I was so used to hearing your name, his warning didn't cross my mind when I saw you. Kurama wanted to say something else, but at Naruto's pleading look, he sighed and reluctantly nodded. No one is above mistakes. No one. Naruto agreed. Speaking of mistakes, Diana jumped at the chance to avoid conversing further with the fox. You inhaled white powder. Is that what I think it is? Naruto grimaced. If you're thinking of a certain stimulant, then yes, it is what you think it is. You really shouldn't do drugs, Naruto. Diana said disapprovingly. No friend of hers was going to ruin his life that way on her watch. I only did it once, Diana. Naruto shook his head. I didn't even know what it was at the time. And you took it anyway? Diana asked incredulously. I was drunk and everyone else was taking it. It's behind me now. Naruto frowned at the memory. Alcohol shouldn't be enough reason to go into something like that. Diana frowned at him. Lowered inhibitions means you're more likely to do what you normally wouldn't do. It's all behind me now anyways. Naruto shrugged, hoping she'd get the hint and drop it. That just means you lack self-control. God damn it. Naruto scowled at her. I said it's behind me now, Diana. Knowing not to continue the topic, Diana nodded. I understand, sorry. He sighed. It's fine. It wouldn't hurt to learn to take a hint though. Diana didn't look too pleased by that but silently agreed. She hated to admit it, but she oftentimes missed subtle attempts people made at switching topics and sometimes, obvious ones. I'll keep that in mind. Naruto shook his head. I'm sorry, that came out a bit harsher than I thought it would. It's better to be blunt than to sugarcoat your point. Diana smiled slightly. True. Naruto nodded. That's Sharingan. Kurama, who had been quietly watching the two talk, roared furiously and rushed towards the green-skinned superhero, exuding his murderous intent for all to feel. Oh shit. Naruto saw Diana take her lasso off her waist as she approached Kurama and followed just as the rest moved to subdue the fox as well. What the hell happened? Jaeon's eyes widened in fright as the fox leapt at him with its face contorted into a visage of hatred and wrath and forced him to bear the full weight of its murderous intent. In his mild panic, he unleashed a telekinetic wave that sent everyone, including a shocked Kurama, flying. Naruto positioned his body in mid-air to land on his feet, and when he did, he saw a levitating Diana trying to wrap her lasso around a floating Kurama who had grown to the size of a bear and was struggling to break free of whatever was keeping him in place. He looked around and saw Jaeon standing with a shaking arm outstretched in Kurama's direction. Kurama, what happened? He asked his friend who struggled against his binds. If Kurama had heard him, he didn't acknowledge him, instead focusing on the Martian. I'm going to kill you. I'll bite your limbs off one by one. Kurama roared angrily and grew to the size of an elephant, forcing most to step back. Jaeon, unable to continue, released the fox from his grip and fell on a chair, tired. Naruto groaned. Out of the corner of his eye, he saw Oliver fire a few arrows near Kurama's feet, and as they impacted the floor, they detonated, releasing a foam that quickly solidified and hardened around the fox's feet. Kurama growled at the archer's act and raised his feet up, breaking free of the foam with an ease that surprised the man. As the fox made to move again, Diana got her lasso around one of his legs and pulled hard, causing him to stumble. He glared at her and increased his size again, this time dragging her with him as he ran towards the green-skinned man who'd been picked up by the one Naruto called Barry. A small wire wrapped around his tail, but he pulled on it hard, sending the one Naruto called Batman flying. The little problem solved, he looked at the running man again. Barry, seeing the fox's glare focus on him, yelped and ran off with Jaeon in his arms. He'd chew the man out about listening to Batman when they weren't being attacked by a giant fox that wanted to kill them. Diana grit her teeth as she pulled harder on the lasso. Her actions didn't seem to slow the fox down much, but she could already see Clark and Gaara moving in to subdue the fox. She was prepared to let go and leave the rest to them when Tsunade gripped the lasso in front of her. You look like you need a little help. The woman grunted and pulled along with her. Diana's eyes widened as they finally brought Kurama to a halt. You're a lot stronger than you look. She complimented the woman, who smirked. That goes for you as well. Tsunade responded. It wasn't just a compliment, even Naruto couldn't hold one of the fox's tails in place without using Sage Mode. Kurama snarled at the two women and moved the tail to bat them both away. Before the limb could strike them, it got restrained by a glowing green cuff from Gaara, of which came more cuffs to bind the remaining tails. Hale grunted. I don't know why nobody's bothered to ask you yet, Naruto, but how do we snap him out of this? You can't. Naruto yelled back. I need you to keep him in place so I can talk to him. Easier said than done, Hale. Hale strained as he struggled to keep the construct solid. The fox's aura had a similar corrosive effect on his ring as a red lantern, and consequently, it put a greater strain on him to keep his constructs from fizzing out. Seeing the man's situation, Naruto looked at Gaara, who nodded, and out of the small gild he had tied to his waist, a large stream of sand flowed out and wrapped around the fox's legs, forcing them further apart. Kurama roared angrily and struggled against the sand, nearly freeing himself before Oliver fired another barrage of arrows at them, fortifying the sand. Tsunade, seeing what the two were doing, let go of the lasso for Diana to pull back just as sand wrapped around the limb they had kept in place. The fox increased his size even further, but Clark and Gaara perched on him from above and pressed him down. Kurama growled as he felt the two press him down into the ground, suddenly reminded of being in a similar situation 19 years ago. He sent a large amount of his chakra leaking through his fur and took delight in hearing their pained hisses. Now would be as good a time as any to talk with him, Naruto. Clark yelled, feeling his arms burn from the fox's energy. God, it felt like he dipped his hands in boiling hot acid. Naruto jumped in front of Kurama, who finally looked at him. Kurama, what the hell are you doing? What am I doing? What am I doing? He growled at his friend. Why don't you ask your green friend what he was doing? What was he doing? Diana frowned. Naruto's head whipped towards Jaeon, who had fully recovered. What did you do? I attempted to enter his mind. Jaeon confessed unhesitatingly. A tense silence fell over the group at the man's words. You've got to be shitting me. Hale whispered tiredly. Naruto blinked. I'm sorry, you did what? I attempted to enter his mind. Naruto stared balefully at the Martian. We let you off for it the first time because of Clark's bullshit about it being a habit, but you did this on purpose. I apologize, I didn't know. Jaeon nodded, unable to express his remorse. He hadn't been able to enter the fox's mind fully, but he caught a few glimpses of its memories and understood why it reacted the way it did, and it only made him feel worse. If you didn't know whatever you didn't know, you shouldn't have done it in the first place. Naruto said angrily. Why would you even try reading his mind at all? Because I told him to. Batman spoke. Naruto glared at the man before turning back to Jaeon. And you just went with what he told you to? What are you, his pet mind reader? He asked the Martian, who frowned slightly at that. Naruto, that's uncalled for. Dinah said. There was no humor in Naruto's short laugh. Neither is trying to invade someone's mind without their permission, but here we are. I don't know how things are in your world, but we don't enter people's minds willy-nilly in ours. But I'm pretty sure it's the same in yours. Naruto nodded to himself. But you all gathered round once, so I'm getting it was to talk about whether or not to have him enter Kurama's mind, wasn't it? We didn't agree to it, Naruto. Clark said. But you knew about it. Naruto scowled at the man. You, Barry, Hal, all of you who joined that meeting. You all knew, and even if you didn't agree with it, none of you thought it proper to warn me or Kurama. It's not like we knew he'd have Manhunter enter his mind now. Oliver frowned at the boy, who shook his head. No, but you knew he wanted him to. Naruto tapped his head. If you're all of the mindset that you're not to be blamed for someone's offense just because you're not involved, even though you could have prevented it altogether by warning the victim, you're not fit to call yourself good people, much less heroes. Hey, why don't we calm down a little, Kakashi placed a hand on his student's shoulder only for him to shrug it away. And you? Naruto ignored his teacher in favor of turning to face Batman. Since we all came here, we've been nothing but nice to you, but apparently, you still feel the need to know everything you can about us? The fox is short-tempered and quick to attack, Naruto. Batman said. If you weren't around when it got out, it would have attacked us. Because you did what I warned you not to do. Naruto argued. Kurama isn't some mindless beast that attacks the first thing he sees, and even if Jaeon got to enter his mind, what then? What would come after seeing his memories? Batman didn't respond. No. Naruto shook his head contemplatively. You weren't just going to see his memories, were you? Kurama wouldn't go that crazy just from feeling someone trying to get in his head. Hadn't Kurama shouted something about the Sharingan? You were trying to control him. Naruto's eyes widened. That's what you were trying to have Jaeon do, not just see his memories. Batman, seeing that the boy would attack him if he said the wrong thing, decided to come clean. I was going to have Jaeon plant a few suggestions in his mind to keep him from attacking us should something trigger him again. I'm here, aren't I? Naruto pointed at himself. Didn't I warn you against calling him by name? You might not have that chance, Naruto, he's out with us now. Batman argued. By the time you give us any warnings, he'd have already flown off his handles. We need a way to make sure that doesn't happen. I've said it before, Kurama's not some rabid beast. But he's volatile. You saw it just now, he'd have killed Jaeon if we weren't here. Batman said. Only because you're the one who poked the sleeping bear. Naruto shot back. I've been ignoring all your paranoid shit because I didn't want to be the one to disrupt the peace, and Clark promised me you'd get off our asses, but this is too far. Naruto didn't let the man speak. We're not going to spring to our feet and try to kill you lot, but that doesn't mean we're just going to sit and let you walk over us just because we don't want to fight. I'll let you off this time, Batman, but if you try something like this again, you best believe we're not going to settle for just talking with you. And you'd best listen to your people when they tell you not to do something. You might be their leader, but I can tell most of them could turn you to a bloody smear on the floor before you could blink. They listen to you because they respect you, not because you're special. But respect only goes so far. You keep up like this and people are going to stop giving a fuck about whether you get shit done or not, and when that time comes, they'll stop listening to you and there won't be a thing you can do to stop it. Batman scowled at the boy but didn't respond. Naruto, having said his part, walked away with Diana following him. Kurama shrunk to the size of a housecat, slipped out of his restraints and followed after the boy without glancing at anyone. Seeing that the tension was gone, Gaara spoke. You messed up, Bats. Gaara. Clark said warningly. What? I'm not wrong. I get wanting to have a means of protecting yourself, but we all know him well enough to say it was more because he wanted to be in control of something here than to keep us safe. Gaara shrugged. Clark sighed. Naruto's words about them turning a blind eye still hadn't left his mind, and he could tell it affected most of them as well. Now's not the time to talk about what just happened, let's just calm down a bit, okay? Gaara shrugged. Whatever, I'm going to meet Naruto. Clark sighed again as his cousin flew away. Just as he had feared, the two had hit it off too fast for his liking. Diana sat next to Naruto, who was stroking a sleeping Kurama's fur. A part of her wondered how the fox had managed to fall asleep so fast, but she chose to ignore it. He's not asleep if you're wondering. Naruto spoke. He'll fall asleep when he calms down a bit. He's still pissed about the whole thing. Ah. Diana nodded. They spent a few moments in comfortable silence before Naruto spoke again. If you want to apologize on his behalf, don't bother. Naruto said quietly. No, I wasn't. She lied. He looked at her from the corner of his eye and smiled lightly. Sure you weren't. Diana shook her head and stared at Naruto's hand as it went into the fox's orange fur. She briefly considered asking if she could pet the fox as well, but decided against it. She wasn't sure if the fox would take kindly to her touching her, especially after what happened. I'm not mad at you, you know. Naruto said again. You didn't know what they were doing. Diana frowned. I'm still going to have to talk with those two about keeping me out of meetings like that. I think they already knew what you'd say. Naruto absently curled a strand of fur with his finger. Even then, they should have included me. Diana shook her head. Clark's stubborn, but it takes more than words to stop Batman from doing whatever he has in mind to do. Amen to that. Gaara joined in as she sat beside Naruto as well. She looked at Kurama, who appeared to be asleep. How'd he sleep so fast? He's not. Naruto looked at Kurama again. Oh, he is. How'd you know? It's a little difficult to tell since there's no heartbeat, but he's too relaxed to be awake. Gaara said. Naruto raised an eyebrow. You can hear heartbeats. Gaara tapped her ears. Super hearing. Naruto blinked. He knew people with keener senses than what was normal, heck he was one of them, but his hearing wasn't good enough to pick up heartbeats. Ah, nice. Yeah, it's pretty helpful. I imagine it is. Naruto agreed. You'd be difficult to sneak up on. Try impossible. Gaara bragged jokingly. Even Batman couldn't sneak up on me. Come to think of it, I thought you'd be with Clark, Gaara. Diana said, trying not to let her annoyance show. He did say he had something he wanted to ask you. He's occupied at the moment. Gaara pointed at the Kryptonian, who looked to be arguing with Batman about something. What, you don't want me around? Of course not. Diana shook her head. You're always free to talk with me. Before Gaara could respond, Kakashi got up. I'm ready to read now, he announced. Within a minute, everyone took their seats as the man opened the book. Naruto felt someone tap him on the shoulder and looked back to see a guilty-looking Barry. Hey man, I'm really sorry for not telling you about Bat's plan. I swear I thought he dropped it after we all said no. I am too, Naruto. Clark said remorsefully. It's fine, I believe you. Naruto nodded. Just don't let it happen again. Assumptions don't keep people alive. Thanks, man. Barry smiled and leaned back on his seat. You're awfully quick to forgive them. Gaara noted. I prefer to speak my mind and move on immediately than hold grudges. Naruto said. Besides, it's a large book. I'd rather we didn't spend up to days here at each other's throats. That's a good thing. Diana smiled at him. Being of a similar mindset, she understood where he was coming from. When he saw everyone had gone quiet again, Kakashi opened the book and the screen came down again as he began to read. Chapter 6 Vandal Savage. How dare you burst in and ruin my wedding? A petite blonde woman said accusingly. Straight into the thick of it, huh? Hale joked. Is Princess Audrey married? Gaara stared at the screen confusedly. Who? Naruto asked. The Princess of Vladivia or something, I can't really remember the name. Gaara explained. This happened on our world too. Diana rubbed her head. Vandal Savage tried to gain control over her country, Kaznia, by marrying her and having her assassinated afterward. I'm guessing you foiled his plan then? Barely. Diana sighed annoyedly. They got married anyway. We're just lucky he played his cards early enough for us to take action without consequences. Why? You'd let someone like that continue with whatever it was he had planned just like that? Naruto asked confusedly. Well, there are things we're not allowed to do without consequences. Clark said. Imagine going into a hostile country and suddenly attacking its ruler. I get that, but isn't that the point of you being vigilantes? You act outside the law, don't you? Vigilantism in itself is a crime, Naruto. We just get let off because the world needs us to fight people the normal forces can't. Clark said. And we're still public figures, so if we get caught breaking international laws left and right, we'd be public enemy number one in the blink of an eye. But you've got people capable of doing the things you can't? Naruto asked conspiringly. Clark glanced at Batman who sat away from everyone. We're getting there. He'd have approved of his idea to have the protégés act as a black ops squad for the Justice League if the man hadn't said they would be completely off the book and the League wouldn't be able to help them if they got caught. In front of her, behind the locked bars of a cell, a tall and athletic woman was chained up to the wall with a pair of very high-tech shackles that even someone of her strength could not break. She was none other than Wonder Woman. Look Diana, it's you. Naruto snickered at the woman who rolled her eyes. I get to see Wonder Woman in the flesh? Gaara said with pseudo-awe. It's a dream come true. Diana gave both blondes a blank look. So you two are just going to ignore that I'm behind bars? Aren't you even curious about what Savage is up to? He's dangerous. Love is blind. Gaara said. If she doesn't get rid of that blindness, she'll be falling into the pit her beloved dug for her. Tsunade replied. Good luck telling her that. Oliver chuckled before mimicking the princess' high-pitched voice. I know he's old enough to be my ancestor and might just be using me to gain power, but that doesn't matter because I'm in Louvre. Audrey didn't love him. Diana said. It was an arranged marriage and Savage hadn't given her any reason to suspect him of having ulterior motives. You'd think she would be more inclined to listen to you then. Gaara stared at the woman on the screen. She had to assure the people of her father's line's continuity, Gaara. And for that, she needed to get married. Diana defended the woman. You can imagine how she must have felt when her wedding got interrupted by her friend. Oh. Gaara didn't know what to say. Why? Do you think he might throw a tank through my wall? The blonde woman crossed her arms and said sarcastically. Clark blinked. You threw a tank through a wall? Diana groaned. I had few options at the time. I was being chased and I'd split up from Batman. Clark still couldn't believe it. But a tank? Yeah, that is overkill. Hale nodded in agreement. What's all the fuss about a tank? Naruto asked and whistled as the image of a tank appeared on the screen. Oh, I see it now. That's really large. It must be heavy too. Try counting from 60 tons. Hale smirked. The ninjas gave Diana looks that ranged from surprise to awe. I knew you were strong, Diana, but that's insane. Tsunade said, impressed. Tell me about it. Clark said. You don't have anything to say here, Clark. You bench-pressed the weight of the world for 5 days on end. Diana took the opportunity to divert attention from herself. 5 days. Gaara whispered disbelievingly. What kind of people were in that world? Gods? Clark hung his head as the ninjas stared at him. He forgot how feats like that would look to people who weren't used to seeing it every day. I've seen my fair share of weird stuff, but that's extreme. Naruto said. Only a few hours ago, Wonder Woman crashed the blonde woman's wedding by throwing a tank through the walls of the church where the ceremony was being held. Thanks a lot for that, Jesus, Barry. Hale sighed. It was the wedding of Vandal Savage and Princess Audrey, the daughter of King Gustav, the ruler of Kaznia. Grow up. He's obviously using you. He's amassing military and political power. I don't think she has much choice in the matter. Tsunade said. Arranged marriages can't get called off unless both agree to cancel it or there's a valid reason to do so. And seeing as how Savage has yet to do anything, she has no grounds on which to call it off. Diana nodded, feeling sorry for her friend. The girl may have been spoiled, but she was a good person. For what? World domination. Batman said easily. You're finally talking now? Oliver asked but got no response. What do you think? He's got to be stopped. Wonder Woman shouted, finally reaching the end of her patience. I get that you're in a hurry, Diana, but you won't get anywhere by just shouting at her to see reason. Kakashi said. Diana didn't respond. It wasn't like her to lose her cool so quickly, regardless of how urgent the situation was. You're a raving lunatic. Not to say you weren't fun to go clubbing with. Shake it, shake it, shake it. Gaara beatboxed with Naruto bobbing his head along to her. I didn't know you go to clubs. Clark looked at the Amazon. I rarely do. Diana replied. Shame. Barry shook his head. You don't go either, Barry. Oliver pointed out. I'm married, man. I can't go out like I used to. Barry defended himself. Even before you got married, you didn't go clubbing. Oliver grinned at his friend. Remember when I dragged you to one? You were like where the hoser then went to hide when they did show up. Naruto shook his head disapprovingly. There are some things you should take with you to the grave, Oliver. That was one of them. Yeah, you don't expose a friend like that, man. Hale shook his head. That was pretty foul. Gaara agreed with the two. Oliver sighed. Could he not do anything funny here? This isn't a joke, Audrey. I think Savage is responsible for your father's sudden illness. Wonder Woman tried to reason with her, but the princess, now queen, shot back angrily. Jesus, Dee, don't just drop a bomb on her like that. Hale said. Would you rather I told her after they were married? Diana asked, annoyed. Hale went quiet. And I think you've just crossed a line. Don't walk away, Audrey. You're making a big mistake. I can do whatever I please. Surely, you've noticed by now. She shot back and strolled out of the prison without sparing her another glance. She's going to regret that. Clark sighed. Considering Naruto's coming there, I'm sure she won't. Barry said. I'm not sure that makes things better. Clark said. Naruto's there to take Savage, who won't go without a fight. I'm sure he won't think of Audrey as anything more than collateral damage if she gets caught in the crossfire. Damn, that's true. That's still me you're talking about. Naruto deadpanned. Are you who's less inclined to save people without monetary gains as an incentive? Tsunade pointed out. He's still me. Naruto insisted. Tsunade rolled her eyes at the boy's stubbornness. We'll see, won't we? Wonder Woman frowned and started to struggle once more to break her shackles, but it was to no avail. Just then, a very strange feeling washed over her, a sensation that made her become very alert. While she did not know what to make of it, she heard the sound of a man's footsteps approaching her cell. The princess senses the arrival of her savior. Oliver stroked his beard. Naruto snickered at Diana's sour expression. Don't worry, Diana. Even I've had my fair share of being saved. You. What are you doing here? Wonder Woman said, greatly surprised. He's here to bust you out. Barry nodded. My mother probably didn't even know who it was in that cell, so I wouldn't say he's here to bust her out. Naruto pointed out. A white Anbu fox mask, blonde hair, a fur-collared black cloak that covered his entire body, and a tiny fox cub curled up on his right shoulder, looking as though it was glued to it. The newcomer was none other than the alien mercenary that had rescued and extorted Superman of a huge sum of money. We're really back to this. Naruto sighed. 4 million's a lot of money. Clark scowled at the boy. You're not even the one who paid me. Naruto groaned. Let it go, man. Kara glanced at Diana. Do they do this often? Diana nodded. In fact, Clark's calmer about it now. Kara idly wondered if Clark secretly complained about her making him owe Batman $50,000. But almost 6 months had passed since then, and Wonder Woman had almost forgotten about the strange alien and his gluttonous talking fox. She had certainly not expected to see him again, much less at that moment in the prison inside the royal castle of Kaznia. Wow, that hurts, Diana. Forgot about me so soon? Naruto shook his head as Kurama woke up. It's been 6 months, Naruto. Diana said. I'm sure your other self has forgotten about me as well. Naruto doubted that. Diana wasn't someone a person could easily forget meeting. Why is it that whenever I meet one of you guys, you're locked up in a cell? Naruto said with a laugh. I hope it doesn't become a recurring theme in that world. Superman sent Diana a pitying look that she and Naruto caught. Hey, I'm that bad a person. Naruto huffed. You refused to save a person from a dead world without taking money. Clark argued. I refused to go on a potential suicide mission for free. Naruto said. What would have happened if there was nobody there? I'd have wasted time and resources for nothing. I agree. Diana nodded. There's no point in taking risks that have no promise of rewards. Did it have to be money? Clark grumbled. Life's like a sandwich, Clark. Kara said. No matter how you flip it, the bread comes first. Naruto clicked his fingers. I have to remember that. Yeah, it's a pretty good quote, huh? Kara grinned at the boy. Tagline worthy. Naruto nodded. You came up with that? Yup. Kara lied. Nice. I think it's best we let Kakashi continue. Diana said. When the two went quiet, she gestured towards Kakashi, who nodded. When he had met Superman, the Kryptonian had been locked up by the Preserver in a cell. Now when he was meeting Wonder Woman again after half a year, she was locked up in a cell too by Vandal Savage. We've got to stop meeting like this. Naruto chuckled. The superheroes rolled their eyes. At first, Wonder Woman's intention had been to ask for help, but she was getting increasingly weirded out by the situation. I'm sure I'd be curious as to what he's doing on Earth. Diana said. Yeah, Earth's kind of a non-entity in space. Hale agreed. Even though it's becoming a little infamous now, the chances of a mercenary getting a job that takes him to Earth are very, very low. What about Lobo? Clark asked. That's your fault for wilding out in space, Clark. Hale said. Clark sighed. What are you doing on Earth? How are the guards right next to you not reacting to your presence? Did Vandal Savage somehow hire you? She asked in a low voice. Nah, he's not my client, he's my target. Naruto said. Besides, I don't work with people like him. Kakashi rolled his eyes at the lie. Naruto, like all ninjas, sided with whoever hired him, be they good or bad. I think we're not talking enough about why the guards aren't doing anything about him being there. Barry stared at the screen intently. That's true. Gaara agreed. Since Diana can see him, it's safe to say he's neither invisible, nor did he stop time. I think there's one thing you're leaving out, Gaara. Kakashi said. Jinjutsu. You think he placed them under an illusion? Tsunade asked. Naruto, knowing Jinjutsu still sounded ridiculous to her. He seems to be very skilled in the art here. Kakashi said. It's the most likely of the options. Naruto waved a hand as to reassure her and said. Don't worry. Vandal Savage is not my employer. He's my bounty. As for why these men can't see me, they are under an illusion. Something like a spell. Kakashi hummed. What do you know? I was right. Just keep reading. Tsunade said. She knew the cage well enough to know he was being smug. It turned out that the strange sensations she was feeling and her instinctual alertness were due to the illusion that he had cast. Cersei gave you PTSD? Oliver snickered. She turned me into a pig. Diana scowled. She made Batman sing. Barry shuddered. Why are you afraid? He's got a good singing voice. Dinah asked. Batman had to sing. Barry pressed. Am I blue? Barry jumped and glared at the grinning Oliver. I hate you. That wasn't even me. Oliver raised his arms. Barry glanced at Batman, who returned his look blankly and looked back at Oliver. Well, I hate you anyway. Batman smirked. Is what you said to that bratty princess earlier true? Is Vandal as bad as you claim? He asked. He's worse. Diana said. Yes. He's the one who orchestrated World War II and caused the deaths of millions of people. It's still strange to think that he's what we know as many historical figures. Hale said. I mean, this guy was Genghis Khan. Clark shrugged. I don't know how, but he's also pretty easy to forget. Easy to forget? Naruto asked incredulously. You make him sound like the root of evil and you're saying he's easy to forget? It's not like we forget him entirely. Clark said. But the guy just fades away all the time. The only times we even hear of him are when he's enacting some plan of his that just ends up getting foiled eventually. I mean, he's really skilled, but most of the time, it's just like, someone desperately trying to gain control of anything he can. Barry completed it for him. The guy's goals don't even make much sense. One moment, he wants humanity to evolve, the next he's all about world domination, the next he's genocidal, the next he thinks the world's better off without us or he wants us under his control. It's weird. Sounds inconsistent. Naruto shook his head. She's not lying, Kyuubi whispered. Due to his negative emotions sensing, no lies or negative emotions could escape his radar. That's a bullshit ability. Hale grumbled. What did you say? Kurama glared at the man who gulped. Keep reading, Kakashi. Naruto had read up on the data about Vandal Savage that Rui Nak had provided to him, but he always researched the veracity of his information by interacting with the locals and doing some research of his own on site. He never trusted someone's words blindly. I'm glad to see that's changed. Kurama said. I don't trust blindly. Naruto frowned at his partner. No, you were just easy to win over. Kurama snorted. Remember the Fuma girl? That was one time. Naruto groaned. The Fuma girl? Diana raised an eyebrow. She knew Naruto knew a lot of women, but they were becoming a bit too many for her liking. It's a long story, I'll tell you later. Alright, thank you, Naruto said and stepped away, about to leave. Sigma male grinset. Oliver chuckled. Don't let anyone distract you from the main goal. Dinah raised an eyebrow. Should I be worried about seeing you on a podcast talking about how I crave you for your masculinity? Oliver smiled. Hell no, I'd never do that. Good. Dinah stroked his beard playfully. I'd hate to have to surprise you there. Oliver winced. The last time she'd surprised him after he said something she didn't like, she cleaned his clock in front of Roy, who never let him live it down. Hey. Don't just leave, help me out. See, I wasn't here to bust her out. Naruto looked at Barry. Yeah. When Naruto stopped in his tracks but did not immediately say anything, Wonder Woman added quickly, thinking that he was going to try to extort her as he had done with Superman half a year ago. If you want gold, I'll give you as much gold as you want. PFFT haha. Clark laughed at an embarrassed Naruto. Oh gods. Naruto hung his head. An amused Diana rubbed his shoulder comfortingly. I'm sure my other self was just trying all her options. She only offered him money because she thought he was going to try extorting her too. Kara snickered. Way to shoot yourself in the foot though. Barry grinned at the Amazon. She was the princess of the Amazons. She may not be as rich as a billionaire like Batman, but the Amazons had enough treasures and ancient artifacts for her to live in a luxury few other women on Earth could afford. She just chose not to because of her upbringing as a warrior. I'm pretty sure you'd be richer if you sold a few of those treasures you have rather than just exchange gold, Diana. Dinah said. I don't see the use in having more money than I need to live comfortably. Diana refused. If only everyone could think that way. Dinah sighed. I get you. Naruto nodded. Who cares about how many zeros are in your account? I just want to be able to afford the things I want when I want them. You're just like me for real. Gaara grinned at the boy who smiled back at her. Even if she wanted to, it would rouse suspicion if she traded artifacts of unknown make. Batman said. Clark rolled his eyes. The man just didn't like the idea of someone being richer than him. He was still salty about Aquaman being a trillionaire. Sorry, princess, no can do. I have a feeling that if I let you out of this cell, you'll try to get in my way and stop me from doing my thing. I'm pretty sure my other self's going to kill him. Naruto said, quickly noticing how all the heroes' faces soured. What did I say? They're not huge fans of killing. Gaara said. Well, neither am I. Why? Because you're heroes. Naruto asked amusedly. No, because there's no reason to kill. Batman argued with the boy who scoffed. Kakashi cleared his throat. We're not from the same world so I can't judge but on ours, sometimes it is but killing isn't something we do because it's enjoyable, it's done because it's necessary. Heroes don't kill. They find a better way. Barry frowned. There won't always be a better way, Barry. Gaara said. There always is. There's always a choice. Clark insisted. There's always a choice. Naruto agreed. It's just a matter of whatever you're ready to deal with the result of your choice and sometimes, the good choice just isn't the right one. When is it never? Batman scowled at the boy. Imagine this. Everyone went quiet as Kurama spoke from his position on Naruto's legs. All but one of you have been placed under the control of a man who uses you to wreak havoc on the world. In less than a day, hundreds have fallen. That one of you who wasn't enslaved confronted the man. You fought and you argued and you were able to claim victory. You ask him to release your people but he tells you the only way that can happen is for him to die. He is not lying, that is the only way. And expectedly, you can't convince him to kill himself. Clark gulped. The morally good choice would be to leave him alive and search for an alternative means to undo his control. Who knows, you may find one or you may not. Either way, you know that for every second you spent searching, hundreds of people die by your people's hands and even if you find the alternative in a minute, no less than 6,000 people would have perished. The morally wrong choice would be to kill him that instant, saving the lives of all those people. It's not hard, just snap his neck. Take one life and that of hundreds, thousands are saved but you've never killed before and you know no amount of justifying it will keep you from suffering the guilt that will follow. He looked at a sweating Clark. Will you let hundreds die so you can keep a clear conscience or will you endure a potential lifetime of guilt so those hundreds can live to see another day? Clark's response was stuck in his throat. Kurama chuckled. Being a hero isn't about dressing up in costumes and saving people, it's about sacrifice. Your acts of heroism are also acts of sacrifice. You sacrifice your time, your energy and should the time come, your life. Is sacrificing your conscience really where you draw the line? Are you so willing to remain pure and good that you'd rather see people die than taint yourself? Having lost interest in the group, he rested his head on his hands and closed his eyes. If it is, then all your acts of heroism are simply your attempts at appeasing a savior complex. Nothing more. Kakashi sighed at the fox's words. When he saw nobody was about to start saying anything, he kept reading. Seeing the furious glare she threw at him, Naruto involuntarily chuckled. Relax. One of your hero friends, I think Batman was his name, is actually hiding just a few feet away. I think he's been waiting for a chance to break you out from your cell but he fell under my genjutsu like the rest of the guards. Batman sighed inwardly. He didn't hate being human, but he could do without being susceptible to every superhuman power there was. Unlike you who seem to have some innate resistance to magic, he's just an ordinary man. Anyway, once I collect my bounty, I'll release the illusion and he'll free you too. Diana, who wasn't affected by Kurama's words, frowned at the screen. I'd rather you freed me now. Naruto chuckled half-heartedly. He might, I'm sure other me's not all that bad. With that, he merrily waved her goodbye and left. Hey! Wait! Wonder Woman shouted after him but he just continued to walk. Sigma male grimaced it. Oliver whispered, trying to lift the mood. He succeeded a bit as Dinah snorted with Barry chuckling lightly. But as Naruto left the cell behind him, Kyuubi suddenly jumped off from his shoulder. Kurama, who had opened his eyes, blinked at the screen. What? Even you find it strange that you're turning down a free ride? Naruto asked. Kurama ignored him. Yo, Kurama, what's up? You go ahead and capture that Muppet. I'll catch up a bit later. Kyuubi said. At Kurama's confused look, Naruto spoke. You're probably going back to stay with Diana. You've been on her like white on rice since you first saw her. How unsightly. Kurama muttered. He hadn't been as attached to even the sage as Naruto claimed he was to Diana. Diana frowned at the fox. You say it like I'm bad to associate with. Kurama stared at the woman for a few seconds. If Naruto's right about you, you're fairly decent. My other self, however, is an embarrassment. Only you, Kurama. Naruto sighed. Naruto looked at him strangely. Not a word. Kyuubi growled threateningly, but Naruto would not be himself if he didn't poke fun at him when he had the chance. You like her. Shut up. Just get going and stop wasting time. Kyuubi barked at him. Son. If you say that word, I'll bite so much flesh off your thigh, you'll see your own femur. Kurama growled, shutting Naruto up. Since Naruto had called him that once, his siblings never stopped ribbing him about it. Gaara squinted at the fox. It was acting just like in that comic. Maybe the fictional stuff wasn't all that far off. Barbara really had to be here. After that, although Naruto did not continue to tease him, his chortles made Kyuubi gnash his teeth. Though he could not fully understand it himself, Kyuubi had an inexplicable feeling of attachment to the woman. It was ridiculous to him as well to believe that it was all because of just a belly rub. She did what? Kurama's eyes shot open. She rubbed your belly and you liked it. Naruto grinned. And I didn't try to kill her? Kurama asked incredulously. You can have her goddess blessing to thank for that. Naruto pointed at her. Kurama gave the woman a suspicious look. Goddess blessing? Naruto understood the fox's reservations about that being a good thing. Neither of them had a pleasant experience with the only real goddess they'd met. I have an affinity for nature. Diana explained. Animals take kindly to me because of Lady Artemis' blessing. I'm no animal. You're much more than that. Diana nodded, inwardly smiling at the fox's proud look that left as quickly as it came. But it didn't stop your other self from falling under its effects, albeit to a much lesser degree. Kurama didn't blame his other self for that. Whatever that blessing was, it affected him too, such that he couldn't bring himself to be as unpleasant to the woman as he wanted to be. Even hearing her speak was calming. And he chooses to submit to it rather than resist. Kurama humphed. Shameful. In truth, Kyuubi's feeling of attachment to Wonder Woman was not a strong bond or anything like being willing to put himself in danger for her sake. It was just goodwill. No offense, but he doesn't strike me as someone who'd be all that into helping people out. Barry said quietly. Oh, he's actually nice deep down. Naruto poked the fox who ignored him. Deep down. He's saved me multiple times, in fact. It just happened to be the lesser evil compared to the other things that could happen if I didn't. Kurama muttered. See, so shit. Naruto yelped when the fox bit his thigh hard enough to draw blood. I'm sorry, I'm sorry. Gaara winced. That looked painful. But that slight goodwill he felt for her was significant enough for him to not be comfortable with ignoring her plight like he would normally do with other humans. Diana sighed. In the first place, it would not cost him anything to just release Wonder Woman from her shackles once Naruto accomplished his mission. That's why he's going back. Clark realized. He's going to release her when Naruto's done. Although his masking technique made his eyes look blue, in reality, currently, his eyes were red and his pupils looked like a cross between a slit and a horizontal bar. Freaky. Gaara said as she stared at his eyes. Yeah, freaky. Naruto nodded. Why do they look like that though? Hell asked. It's like you've got a plus sign in your eyes. Hell if I know. Naruto lied. In truth, he wasn't all that sure himself. His eyes never went that way unless he was using Kurama's chakra in tandem with Sage Mode. At that moment, every single life signature in the castle was as clear in his perception as though he could see them with his own eyes. This Sage Mode of yours sounds more and more useful as we learn of it. Diana said. To sense people, impressive. It's not limited to people, I can sense life. Plants, animals, people, if it's alive, I can see it. Naruto explained proudly. Nifty. Batman muttered. You can't get snuck up on either and you didn't say so? Gaara poked him in the side. You've been holding out on me, Naruto. Can't get snuck up on gang. Naruto high-fived her with a grin. Due to his Sage Mode, it was a piece of cake for Naruto to find Vandal Savage's location because his life signature was clearly different from other humans. It was quite similar to that of the Amazon princess locked in the cell, not quite as strong, but still similar. Similar? Diana frowned, not too happy with being compared to Vandal Savage. Naruto tried to imagine what his other self had to have seen. What's the most unique life signature you've seen? Kaguya's Kurama answered for him. Right, Kaguya. Naruto nodded, confusing Diana and Gaara. The chakra aside, what made her special? Life, she's immortal, isn't she, Kurama? Just like you. Like you, her life's light wasn't dimming. If Vandal Savage is the same, his life's light wouldn't dim either. If I think it's the same as Diana's, it's safe to say. Diana? Naruto called the woman. You wouldn't happen to be immortal too, would you? Diana's eyes widened. What? It's the only way I see you and Savage having similar signatures without being related in any way. Naruto said. I don't know, Naruto. I really don't know. Diana shook her head slowly. On Themyscira, the only way for an Amazon to die was to be killed, and most stopped aging past their prime. She wasn't any different, and even on Earth, she hadn't felt herself aging one bit but didn't think of it beyond it being a likely consequence of being a Themyscrian. It's best you don't think too much into it, Diana. Clark shrugged. He wasn't immortal himself, but he'd lived for thousands of years before dying naturally. Yeah, it's not going to change anything. You are who you are. Naruto agreed. Diana nodded, making a mental note to ask her mother about it. Is that woman immortal like Vandal Savage too? Immortal like me? Naruto asked himself, intrigued. When he had come to Earth the first time around, he had not used his sage mode as he had had no reason to. Unless it was for the sake of a mission. He would generally prefer to not use his sage mode on the planets inhabited by sentient creatures due to the high degree of pollution of nature and the harmful effects that drawing such infected energy would have on him when taken in large doses. We get it, our planet's a toxic mess. Oliver rolled his eyes. Still coming if I can know. Naruto said. Hey, let me know if you find a way to our world. Gaara said brightly. I know this one place that sells sticky buns that are to die for. Clark looked at the girl suspiciously. Was she asking him out? I don't know what those are, but they sound good. Naruto smiled back. I'll let you know when I show up. It's a date then. Gaara grinned. Wait, what? Naruto blinked. Diana's eye twitched. Soon enough, he reached the control room. In a puff of smoke, his body transformed into that of a housefly. At this point, nothing you do surprises me anymore. Hale sighed. Gives a new meaning to fly on the wall. Dinah chuckled. Shape-shifting or not, becoming the size of a fly? Amazing. Barry said. Naruto soaked up the praise, neglecting to tell them that he only blanketed himself with an illusion to look like a housefly rather than actually become one. Henge was one of the first and easiest techniques that shinobi used to learn back in his homeworld. Even 10-year-old kids could perform it. But, despite its simplicity, it was invaluable for any spy, sabotage, or assassination missions that had to be completed covertly. You all know this? Clark looked at the ninjas who nodded. Save for a few special cases, it's mandatory to have a degree of mastery over it in order to join the forces. Kakashi said. Dinah frowned at the middle sentence. Children shouldn't be trained to spy, fight and kill. Vandal, what do you think you are doing? The new queen of Kaznia asked in disbelief. Betraying you. Barry said. No shit, Sherlock. Hale snorted. Just a few moments before that, Colonel Vox, Vandal Savage's right-hand man, had confirmed the destruction of the Justice League's spacecraft. The superheroes froze at Kakashi's words. Oh god. Clark started. We weren't on time here. Barry shook his head disbelievingly. That's not possible, it's just not. Barry, Vox confirmed it. Hale told his friend. The watchtower's gone. That's what Lex and his buddies thought too, remember? Barry insisted. And look how things turned out. It's not gone, you'll see. Yeah. We'll see. Hale admitted. He didn't really believe the watchtower had somehow been saved here, but like Barry, he still had a bit of hope. Destroying the Justice League. Building a railgun. Assuming total dominion over the nations of the earth. Vandal Savage said from his throne-like seat, then chuckled. Sweet foolish child. Wonder Woman was right all along. Ridiculous. You'd have to be over 100 years old. Queen Audrey denied. He's far older than that. Diana shook her head. Far older. I'm far older than that, Vandal Savage boasted. It was over 25,000 years ago when I got this power. While my fellows cowered with fear, I dared to approach the strangely glowing rock that fell from the sky. It was warm and the night was very cold. I slept curled up next to it, not realizing what its radiation would do to me. But over the millennia that followed, as I watched those around me grow old and die while I remained unchanged, I discovered the truth. I came to accept my destiny, I lived to rule. Naruto was unimpressed. If you haven't achieved what you were born for in over 25,000 years, there's no point in trying anymore. Diana agreed. The Stone Age would have been the perfect time to assume control over all of humanity and stay in control even as the race evolved. His goal would only get harder as time went, and with the constant popping up of metahumans, superheroes and supervillains with similar goals, he'd have an increasing number of opposition and rivals for his goal. Delusions of grandeur aside, I rule Kaznia. Queen Audrey shot back. Not for long if he has anything to say about it. Oliver's smile had no humor in it. He doubted Naruto's alternate self would let her die, but he wouldn't put it past the mercenary not to bother helping her if doing so would make his job harder. Hey, we've got Naruto there. Gaara pointed at the blonde next to her. The savior. Tsunade smirked at the boy who sighed. Makes you wonder what he'd be like if he was evil. Barry looked at the boy. We are not the same. Gaara smiled lightly. Doubt it. Tsunade grinned. Chidori. Kakashi said, getting everyone to look at him. Well, you know, him and Sasuke had this little rivalry going on, opposite of Rasengan, Chidori. You get it? Naruto shook his head. Just read. Kakashi's shoulders sagged. Tough crowd. That's why I married you, Vandal Savage said smugly. It's also why I poisoned your father. I didn't see that coming at all. Gaara said dryly. You poisoned my father. She yelled and slapped him with all of her strength, leaving a trail of bloodied scratches on his face. Oliver whistled. She's got one mean slap, that's for sure. He did kill her father. Dinah said. She probably put all she had into that. Too bad it won't mean much. Clark sighed. All those marks will be gone in a second. He heals quickly? Naruto asked. That's why he's immortal. Diana said. His cells regenerate rapidly enough for even mortal injuries to heal in seconds without so much as a scar. What's with the one on his face then? Naruto pointed at the scars on the man's face that could only come from claws. He probably had them before coming in contact with the meteorite. Diana answered unsurely. It was either that or there was something capable of negating his regeneration. She hoped it was the latter. The man had been around for too long already. But after Vandal Savage grabbed her arms and immobilized her, she grew shocked when she saw the clawed skin of his cheek heal up in a second. There it is. Barry snapped his fingers. Guards, confine this brat to her quarters. At his words, two soldiers grabbed the young queen roughly and started to drag her outside. But everyone in the room froze when a masked man appeared behind Savage Vandal out of nowhere. The self-proclaimed king of Kaznia suddenly found his feet leaving the ground when a steel-like hand clenched around his neck and lifted him in the air. Savior Naruto coming in clutch. Oliver imitated a sports commentator. I'm beginning to get creeped out by how many voices you can imitate. Barry gave the archer a strange look. I told you, it's a hobby. Oliver said. Kakashi idly wondered if Naruto's encounter with Savage would be like his own with Hidden. Perfect Russian came out of the masked man's mouth. My mission was to capture you and hand you over in a perfect condition, but trash like you doesn't deserve to live even as a lab rat. I knew it. Naruto nodded. Most of the superheroes grimaced, already knowing what was going to come next. Unless your Naruto's got something capable of killing someone who can survive even decapitation, he's not putting Savage down. Diana pointed out. Well, the job's to bring him in alive and he'll heal from anything I do, so I can't just cripple him and call it a day. Naruto mused. I'd probably just chop him to bits and take away his parts like that. Clark shuddered. He'd seen something similar done in movies and hated it a lot. He didn't want to watch Naruto cut someone to small enough parts to stuff in a box. Jesus, Barry gave his friend a disturbed look. He'd seen crime scenes like that, but he didn't want to have to watch it being done. That's hardcore. Oliver muttered half-heartedly. It gets the job done, doesn't it? Naruto chuckled awkwardly. I mean, he's not dead, just cut down to size. Yeah, cut down to size. Gaara nodded absently. She didn't exactly approve of it, but a morbidly curious part of her wanted to see it done. Batman stared at the boy intently. Was this really who Diana was interested in? At that moment, the soldiers in the control room and Colonel Vox woke up from their stupor and immediately started to yell as they pointed their weapons at him. Release him immediately. Vandal Savage also struggled to say despite his throat being choked. Whatever you were paid, I'll give you double. No, triple. Sorry man, but when I'm paid, I always see the job through. Naruto nodded. Dinah blinked. Did he just quote Angel Eyes? But just as his words ended, Naruto's other hand clenched into a fist and punched a hole into his back, through his chest, obliterating his heart. Rin's face flashed through Kakashi's mind, but he banished it as quickly as it came. Oliver looked away and Barry retched. Gaara sighed when he felt the speedster's vomit splatter on his sandals and toes. He was no stranger to gore, but watching Naruto of all people punch a hole through someone's chest felt wrong. Clark stared at the screen in mute shock and Diana just watched intently, secretly satisfied to see the man meet his potential end. Kurama, who opened his eyes to look at what happened, smirked at the sight. I approve. Of course you would. Naruto thought tiredly. You could have just stabbed him, Naruto. Kakashi said disapprovingly. I'm just being thorough. Naruto shrugged. The loss of a heart's going to at least leave him groggy for a bit. He'll be unlikely to throw a properly coordinated punch even if he heals fast. Tsunade glanced between the screen and the boy she saw as a son. She'd never gotten to see him in action before the war, but even then, he didn't display the brutality she was watching. Was this Naruto the same? Naruto himself couldn't help the slight nostalgia from watching the impalement. Brings back memories. Memories? Batman stared at him. You've done this before. No, but I've felt it before. Naruto grinned humorlessly. You've experienced this? Diana asked in shock. Yep. Naruto ignored the concerned and horrified looks he got. Savage got off lucky, I was at the receiving end of a lightning-coated fist. And I got stabbed twice. Kakashi sighed heavily. Teaching Sasuke the Chidori was one of his greatest regrets. The boy had done exactly what he had been warned not to use it for in his bid to defect from the village. Hardcore. Oliver gave the boy an odd look. Batman stared at the boy in mild concern. No wonder he was able to bear to watch something like this easily. A large amount of blood splattered over Queen Audrey and the two guards that had been the closest to him. The woman screamed in terror and she lost strength in her legs. The guards themselves were petrified and could not keep a hold of her as she collapsed on the floor. Yeah. Dinah grimaced. She could only imagine how Audrey was feeling. Spoiled party girl who went from living it up to watching her would-be husband who also murdered her father get his heart destroyed in the royal courtroom. It sounded like a nightmare. Kara winced at the girl's scream. She'd seen stuff like this in movies, but it was considerably worse to see it actually happen in real life. Kill him. Colonel Vox hollered and then he opened his mouth wide and initiated his sonic scream. But even before the sound waves could reach their target, a blade of pressurized air separated his head from the rest of his body. The other soldiers in the room became as still as statues. They did not dare to even move a muscle. Batman's face soured further at the sight of the clean decapitation. It was too smooth not to be a practiced move. Why you're not going to kill the guards too, are you? Barry shakily asked Naruto who hummed thoughtfully. It depends on whether they try fighting me or not. I hope they don't though, my other self shouldn't be forced to shed more blood than he has to. In the deathly silence that instilled, a sudden coughing noise came from Vandal Savage's previously lifeless body. I am immortal, cough I can't be killed. There is nothing. Absolutely nothing that you can do to me. It's fortunate that the goal isn't to kill you then. Naruto smiled. As he said that, Vandal Savage even broke into raspy laughter. But his laughter died in his throat when another blade of wind beheaded him too like his subordinate. It wasn't enough that you destroyed his heart? Batman glared at Naruto. If he could still talk, he clearly wasn't as incapacitated as I thought. What do you know, I got to kill you twice and even complete my bounty too. This must be my lucky day. Naruto chuckled. Let's see how you're going to revive in an inanimate space, devoid of air, where even time doesn't exist. And there's the ceiling. Naruto nodded. Thank God, it's finally over. Barry took off his mask to wipe the sweat from his chin. You should be happy he didn't chop him to bits, you'd have seen organs sliding around on the floor like fish. Kakashi smiled at the man's nausea from the mental image. He took out 2 sealing scrolls from his cloak and unfurled them unhurriedly. Without even looking at the soldiers, he warned them. Don't make any moves. Don't give me a reason to kill you. What a joke. The soldiers around were too scared to breathe too loud, let alone entertain any thoughts of acting against him at that moment. They're probably not even paid enough to protect Audrey's life, much less risk theirs against someone capable of decapitating people with wind. Oliver snorted. They were just average humans while, in their eyes, he looked like a demon. Even the bratty queen, Audrey, had none of her previous haughtiness. Her face was livid as she watched him, too terrified to move even an inch from where she had fallen. You're not alone in that. Kara sympathized with the girl. With Naruto's cheery demeanor, it was easy to forget he was a highly trained killer. Seeing his other self decapitate 2 people with ease in the span of a minute was an eye-opener for her. But Naruto himself could not care less about anyone else in the room. He had no interest in killing the others. He had been a shinobi in the past. In a way, he had been in the military as well. He knew that the soldiers were only following orders. Nevertheless, if they were to shoot at him, he would show no mercy, like with Colonel Vox. Like I said, they don't attack me, I don't attack them. Naruto nodded. I doubt they'd attack you even if they were ordered to. Hale shook his head. Having been in the military himself, he'd seen people choose to desert rather than follow orders that would lead to a guaranteed death. He threw one of the scrolls on Vandal Savage's head and the other one on the rest of his body, making them vanish in 2 small clouds of white smoke. Bringing a finger to his left ear, Naruto spoke. 8, Kurama, I'm done here. Kiss your girlfriend goodbye and meet me at the ship. Girlfriend? Naruto snickered at Diana. You hear that, Kurama? You're in a serious relationship now. Kurama snorted. I'm sure she prefers his partner. Diana rolled her eyes. She's not my girlfriend, you piece of Kyuubi yelled into his earpiece, but Naruto cut off the connection with a chuckle. Kurama growled at Naruto's laugh. After he grabbed the 2 sealing scrolls from the floor and pocketed them inside his cloak, he disappeared, leaving only a few arcs of yellow and black light flickering in his wake. Gets me every time. Barry said. I thought teleportation would be a common thing in your world. Naruto looked at Barry strangely. You can run through time. The only superpowers that get around are immortality and flight. Hale replied. Teleportation is surprisingly rare, even in the larger universe. Naruto looked back at the screen. Horizontal ellipsis. A few minutes after Naruto teleported away from the room, Batman and Wonder Woman burst through the doors of the control room. But they only found an obscene amount of blood splattered everywhere. Clark winced at the sight. I don't know how, but the aftermath looks even worse than the actual action. It's usually like that. Barry said. He'd been to messy crime scenes before, but seeing them never got any easier for him. Soaked with Vandal Savage's blood, Queen Audrey was still lying on the floor with a blank look on her face while the rest of the soldiers in the room were looking at each other filled with helplessness and uncertainty. They did not know what they were supposed to do in that situation. I can get that. Naruto nodded. When even the Queen's lost, you can't really do much more than just stand there and hope nothing else happens. Speaking from experience. Gaara asked the boy who nodded. Despite Queen Audrey's previous behavior towards her, Wonder Woman came to her and asked kindly, Audrey, can you tell me what happened? But the blonde woman was in shock. She was incapable of speech at that moment, just staring blankly at the pool of blood on the floor. She's traumatized. Dinah pitied the woman. Even with therapy, it would take years for her to get over something like that. Barry nodded sympathetically. He'd been in a similar state after his mum was killed. You, tell me what happened here. Batman ordered one of the soldiers. Being rough with them won't help you, Batman. Naruto frowned at the vigilante. They're not exactly better off. Batman didn't reply. After getting the full story from the soldier, Batman's hands clenched into fists. Not for the first time since he had joined the Justice League, he had found out the hard way what it meant to be a part of a team of superheroes while he had no superpowers himself. Batman, Clark looked at the man who didn't acknowledge him. He had fallen prey to the alien mercenaries' illusion technique without even being aware of it, just like the men guarding Wonder Woman's cell. Batman was confident about fighting against anyone if he was allowed enough time to prepare and make plans. But without preparation time, in front of an unexpected situation, he was too vulnerable. He was only human. Few plans ever survive contact with the enemy. Gaara said. There's no guarantee you'd be able to fully prepare for him even if you knew he was coming. Batman didn't respond, but he agreed with the redhead. There never seemed to be enough plans he could make for anyone, both ally and foe. If it had holes in it, there was always the chance that he'd be reduced to a bloody smear on the wall before he even got the chance to follow through with any of them. But nonetheless, he tried. He tried because he knew his plans were all he had. He wasn't strong or fast or durable enough to keep up with most of the enemies the League faced. His only edge came from being prepared for every conceivable possibility, and the moment he lost that edge, he was finished. Clark sighed. He knew this would only send Bruce spiraling further down. Even more alarming for Batman than falling into Naruto's illusion was that Martian Manhunter at the Watchtower had not detected an alien ship approaching the Earth. That was a massive breach in their defense. What if this time around, the alien mercenaries' mission had been to capture the President of the United States instead of the ruler of Kaznia? What would have happened? You're thinking too far into this, Bats. Flash sighed. Am I, Barry? Batman asked. You have to think of this first. What work anyone in space have to gain from this? Hale chided the man. People on Earth are just humans from a backwater planet in an irrelevant system in an inconsequential galaxy in an unpopular sector in a wide universe. Unless someone here achieves some technological breakthrough that's not been achieved out there, there's nothing to gain from us. Way to make us feel small, Hal. Barry chuckled. You got my point, Hal. We can't just let aliens come and do as they like. Batman insisted. That was the whole point of creating the League in the first place. The Justice League had been created primarily with the purpose of protecting the Earth from the aliens that would try to invade. If aliens could come to Earth and wreak havoc as they pleased, then what did the Justice League even exist for anymore? They had to take action and they had to do it fast. That doesn't sound good at all. Naruto blinked. Tell me about it. Clark sighed. He didn't want to know what Bruce had in mind now. Wonder Woman, let's go. We have to meet with the rest of the Justice League immediately. But Audrey is. I can't just leave her like that. She is no condition to. Batman glared at her, and although he did not shout, the words he spoke were very sharp. What's more important? Consoling a spoiled little girl or making sure the Earth is safe? I thought you knew better than that. Really, Batman? Dinah frowned at the vigilante. He worded his point wrongly. Batman admitted, frowning at his other self. He's obviously just transferring anger. Barry said. It doesn't matter. Batman insisted. He shouldn't have said it that way regardless. The whole reason he became Batman was to make sure people didn't have to go through what he did in that alley when he was 8, scared, covered in blood and alone in his suffering. He wanted to prevent them from going through that, and for the ones he failed to protect from that, he wanted to be there for them. Batman wasn't just meant to be a symbol of vengeance and justice, He was supposed to be, in his own way, a symbol of hope. Wonder Woman looked at him startled. The rough way in which Batman spoke to her now was unlike him. She thought that the two of them had become a little closer after sharing a dance yesterday at the engagement party of then Princess Audrey and Vandal Savage. Diana sighed inwardly. It had been that dance that also led to her thinking there could be something between them. He'd been the one to shoot down her hopes. Apparently, it would be the same in this world. She knew he was mostly speaking out of anger, but it didn't make her feel any better. You all right, Diana? Naruto looked at the woman concernedly. Yeah, I'm fine. She smiled at him. What did it matter if Bruce had rejected her? Here was someone who seemed to be interested in her and she had to admit, she'd taken a liking to him as well. But now, she wasn't sure whether or not to be as direct as she had been with Bruce. But Wonder Woman had no way of knowing just how rattled Batman was because of his vulnerability as a human and that he was not exactly calm at that moment. She thought that Batman was acting like an asshole to her on purpose, to distance himself from her. Because he had done that a few times over the past year since she joined the Justice League. He had even made it clear once that he did not want anyone else in his life, especially not a teammate. Relationships with teammates do tend to complicate things. Kakashi nodded. They don't always have to. Barry said. They will, whether you want it to or not. Kakashi said. So long as there's affection, it's going to cloud your judgment. Clark wondered why Bruce told her he didn't want anyone in his life. The last time he checked, he'd gotten close with some cat peddler in Gotham. In the end, Wonder Woman did not comment anything about her hurt feelings. She chose to stay silent and follow Batman to their javelin to meet with the rest of the Justice League at the Watchtower. Kara had to admire the woman for being able to bottle it up like that. She'd have probably flown into a short rant if she were in her shoes. However, in her heart, she gave up on any thoughts she might have had about a possible relationship with Batman. He was a good man with qualities worthy of admiration such as his courage, tenacity and resourcefulness, but, in the end, Wonder Woman was a valiant warrior and a princess blessed by the gods themselves. She was not a weak and needy woman that would blindly and endlessly chase someone that did not want her. She was Diana, princess of the Amazons. She had her pride and dignity too. Diana smiled proudly at that, getting a chuckle from Naruto who saw her. That you are, T. Kara smiled. You're the Wonder Woman. Tsunade shook her head as her mind went back to one of her students. In spite of all her development, Sakura often regressed whenever she met Sasuke, walking on eggshells around him and trying desperately to gain his approval even though it was clear that while he acknowledged and commended her strength, he didn't see a partner in her. Kakashi shut the book. The chapter's over. Finally. Barry sighed in relief. As everyone left their seats, Bruce tried to approach Diana who had already walked off with Naruto only for Clark to tap him on the shoulder. He turned back to look at the Kryptonian who shook his head. Getting the message, he sighed resignedly. What is it? We need to talk, Bruce. I still can't believe you survived a fist through the chest. Kara started. Would you have preferred it if I died? Naruto frowned at the girl who shook her head frantically. Oh no, it's just, you know. I'm just kidding. Naruto smirked. People typically don't survive injuries like that, even with help. How did you do so then? She asked. I have Kurama to thank for that. Kurama healed you? She glanced at the fox who lay on Diana's thighs. After much persuasion from both Naruto and the Amazon, the fox finally agreed to let her pet him. Didn't even leave a scar. Naruto nodded before his smirk turned to a teasing smile. Want to see the spot? You know. Kara glared at him as a faint blush dusted her face. Damn it, Naruto. What even led to that? Diana asked, moving her hand to stroke Kurama's tail only for one to slap her hand away. It was a mission. Me and a few others had to retrieve someone we thought had been kidnapped. Naruto reminisced. Turns out he was defecting with his kidnappers. Shameful. Diana shook her head. There was no greater act of dishonor in her eyes than betrayal. Loyalty was something she respected, be it seen in a friend or enemy. No, I had to fight with the defector who happened to be my teammate and he stabbed me in the chest twice with his, well, fist. He finished. Kurama healed me relatively quickly, but damn it did hurt. Oof. Kara sympathized. I wouldn't want to have to fight my own ally. It had to be done. He said. I'd have rather not fought him, but his active refusal to return already turned him from a kidnapped victim to a defector. The usual punishment for that is death, regardless of the person's rank. Kara understood. Even on Earth, that was the punishment for desertion in all militaries. What's become of him now? Naruto shrugged. He played an important role in winning the war so his punishment was lessened from death to a few months in prison. He's out already but I don't know what he's doing now. The circumstances surrounding Sasuke's crimes helped him too. His murdering Danzo became pardonable after Root got exposed, Killer Bee turned out to have defected and left behind a clone that his team had fought, and Mifune let him off easy because he hadn't actually killed any of the samurai. His most severe crimes were, surprisingly enough, interrupting the Caged Summit and being a one-time member of the Akatsuki. Your grandmother's still staring at us, Naruto, Diana remarked. She'd been subtly glancing at the blonde woman who hadn't taken her eyes off them for a while. She's trying to make sure you don't take advantage of her baby boy. Kara quickly jeered. Take advantage? Diana asked, offended. Naruto rolled his eyes. She's not my grandmother, I just say that because she's old enough to be my grandmother. Old enough? Kara gave him a confused look. She's in her 50s, Naruto. And? Naruto raised an eyebrow. Even if she had a child as early as in her 20s and the child did the same, you'd be 10 at most. How can she be old enough to be your grandmother? Dart? Teenage pregnancy? In spite of herself, Diana couldn't help laughing. Sure, that's one. Kara snorted. God, now I remember all those times Mum and Dad used to warn me against getting a boyfriend. You'll get pregnant, Kara. Keep yourself for the right person, Kara. Is that how parents are? She wasn't sure if Naruto was an orphan like in the comics, but it was safe to assume he wasn't unless he said otherwise. Naruto shrugged. I wouldn't know, I never met mine, but in their defense, the second's pretty good advice. Granny tells me to do that too, at least she used to. The woman had been unhappy when she found out he'd slept with multiple people, even more so when Sakura snitched to her about his promise to give Shion a child. Come to think of it, he hadn't seen to that yet. Oh, you're doing the same? Kara perked up, hopeful to have someone in the same situation. Diana, deciding to save Naruto from answering, spoke. She's still staring. I don't think she's going to stop. Naruto gave the Amazon a grateful smile. He had a feeling the former Cage didn't really like him hanging out with the superheroes. Kara, knowing she wouldn't get an answer, gave up and glanced at the woman too before frowning. How in the world did they get so big? Naruto, who already knew what she was talking about, snickered. I have no idea. One of her teammates told me she used to be as flat as a board when she was younger. Kara looked down at her own chest. Puberty hit her like a cannon. Ah. Diana smirked at the girl. You'll still grow, Kara. You're just 19. I didn't become like this until my 5th century. Kara stared at the Amazon annoyedly. She'd seen the woman's bust before. If anything, the armor pressed it in. I still can't believe she's over 5,000 years old. Naruto thought as he stared at the woman. I can't believe you like a woman older than even that accursed goddess. Kurama said to the boy. I can't help it, Kurama. Does she look 5,000 to you? Whatever. Wake me up when the next chapter starts. Naruto sighed when he felt Kurama's emotions die out, a sign that it had fallen asleep. Slothful fox. Dart. Penny for your thoughts, Lady Tsunade. Tsunade looked up to see Kakashi standing in front of her with his book in hand. It's nothing. Kakashi followed her gaze to Naruto, who was talking with Diana and the Kryptonian girl. Given how you're staring at those three, I wouldn't say it's nothing. It's nothing that concerns you, Hatache. Undeterred, Kakashi sat next to her. They spent the next few moments in silence before he spoke again. They've been getting awfully close, haven't they? Tsunade sighed. You're not going to let this go. I'm not. Kakashi gave her his infamous eye smile. It just wouldn't do to have our beloved 5th Hokage being a worrywart in the eyes of strangers, after all. Tsunade rolled her eyes. I'm not a worrywart, I'm just, mildly concerned. About what? It's not like anything they'll do would go past this realm. Kakashi leaned back. If you've forgotten, he's been talking about going to their world. Tsunade frowned at the silver-haired man. Even if he even gets space-time travel down, he'd have to find their world specifically. Kakashi shrugged. If what Hale says is true, there's only 1 out of infinity chance of that happening. But it's possible. And what happens if he does find it? Kakashi stared at the woman intently. What exactly about him leaving has you so worried? Aside from the fact that he'd be technically defecting? He's come too far to be marked down as a common nuke nin. Tsunade folded her arms. He has been trying to resign for a while now, and I'd let him if it wasn't for the fact that all his application letters mysteriously disappear before they reach me. The silver-haired man gave the former Cage a knowing look that made her snort and look away. Not very Cage-like of you to let a loyal ninja just leave service like that. If you know him well, you'd know he's not loyal to the village. Everything he's done for Konoha, he's done out of morality and a lack of other options. Kakashi smiled sadly. He didn't grow up seeing its pleasant side, not like most of you did. Tsunade noticed he didn't include himself but didn't bring it up. She understood why. Friend killer Kakashi wasn't a term of endearment. I just don't like the idea of him running around in another world, Kakashi. Knowing him, he'll get himself involved in problems that aren't his own. Tsunade admitted. It can't be helped if he's that way. Kakashi nodded. But it's not all bad, at least he's got something to look forward to when he gets there. He gestured towards the two heroines only to drop his hand when he saw Tsunade frown at them. You don't like them? It's not that I don't like them, it's just, Tsunade paused for a bit. Why does he have to like them? I'm sure Naruto's only interested in Diana. You know what I mean, Hatake. Tsunade's frown deepened. Of all the women he'd like, why does it have to be one from another world? You have to admit that they're more attractive than most. Kakashi shrugged before giggling to himself. It makes you wonder if they're all like that. Tsunade rolled her eyes. I don't want him pining for someone he'd probably never meet again or who'd have already moved on by the time he manages to see her again. Kakashi had to admit, she had a point there. Regardless of which happens, he'll get over it. He always does. Not from something like this. Tsunade thought. Naruto himself probably didn't realize it yet, but he didn't take well to loss, be it the loss of a loved one or someone leaving him. Jiraiya's death had left him a husk for weeks, and even though he never admitted it, Sasuke's defection had hurt him a lot as well. There was a high chance that once the book was completed, they would all be returned to their respective worlds as abruptly as they'd been taken from it, and if his and Diana's relationship had gone beyond friendship only for such a thing to happen, she wasn't sure the boy would move on early, if at all. She didn't want to see him end up like her, refusing to move on from one person only to realize he'd had another chance with someone else after that it was gone forever. I hope so. Tsunade sighed. Aren't you even the least bit worried about the things he'd face there? How dangerous it could be. I'm sure Naruto's as aware of the dangers as we are. Kakashi assured the woman. And like it or not, there's nothing either of us can really do to keep him from doing what's on his mind. All we can do is wish him the best. Tsunade nodded resignedly and went back to staring at the three. Kakashi, unsure of what to say, reluctantly opened his book. Blasphemous as it felt to say, he was getting tired of rereading the Icha series. He'd read all the issues till he could recite all the lines as they'd been written. It was in times like this that he truly mourned Lord Jiraiya's death. The man had taken his literary genius to the grave, and his only living student had refused to continue his legacy. Maybe it was time to pick up another person's works. He hoped Lord Jiraiya would forgive him from the great beyond. Dart. I think it's time we continued reading. Gaara spoke out. So who's going to read now? Tsunade asked when they were all seated. Whoever the book chooses. Barry said. Almost immediately, the book flew into his hands. He sighed. I shouldn't have said that. I hope he doesn't kill someone in this one too. Clark said quietly, but Naruto heard it clearly. Oh come on man, does it really sting you that much? Naruto threw his arms in the air. No, but it'd have caused a lot of trouble for us. Vandal savage or not, a dead body turning up where we are would cause a lot of suspicion. Batman said. While he was secretly pleased that Savage was gone, the manner in which it was done was what he had a problem with. Although he hoped Naruto wouldn't find a way to Earth. With the kind of villains they had, he was sure the boy would go on a killing spree if the chance presented itself. I don't know about you, Clark, but I say good riddance. Diana shook her head. I don't even see why we're dwelling on this, let's just be happy Savage is done for. Yeah. Naruto agreed with her. If he's really as evil as you say he is, don't you think the world's better off without him? Well yeah, but did you really have to do that? Like crush his heart and all? Barry asked, said Blonde, who shrugged. I've met too many people with a knack for cheating death, forgive me for being thorough. Naruto defended himself. Believe me, there was a chance that he'd have vomited up another body or still put up a fight because I only destroyed one out of his multiple hearts. That's oddly specific. Dinah blinked. Because I've seen it happen. Naruto nodded. It pays to leave as little to chance as possible. Amen to that. Hale agreed. Kilowog usually pressed the same point, albeit in a different manner. It kind of reminds me of that scene from that movie Fury, remember? The one with Brad Pitt? Kara nudged Clark, who squirmed uncomfortably. The man never reacted well to gore. How would you know? Are you a doctor? Oliver yelled into his hand. I can't help you there, buddy. Barry looked away from Oliver's expectant look. I can barely remember any lines from that movie. You're dead to me. The speedster rolled his eyes and the screen came down as he flipped the book open and began to read. Chapter 7 Starfire. Why have you gathered us all here today, Batman? Green Lantern asked. It was only a few minutes after Flash, Green Lantern and Martian Manhunter sabotaged the International Space Station. To prevent anyone from getting their hands on that powerful railgun, they blew up the whole satellite. Everyone else on board, the astronauts and Kaznia's agents too, were taken out and brought to the Watchtower thanks to Green Lantern's power ring. But it was only temporary. They had to take them back to Earth. Why didn't you just take them back to Earth in one go rather than bring them to the Watchtower and have someone take them in a javelin? Diana asked. I was probably low on power or something. Came Hale's weak defense. Naruto was surprised. The way the man had described his ring, he made it sound like it had unlimited energy. Always keep a double A on you. Oliver snickered. Hale fixed the archer with a blank look. The ring runs on batteries? Gaara asked incredulously. No, it's only rechargeable by a portable lantern containing 1% of the power of the sen. You know what, I'll tell you later. Hale ignored her grin. It was annoying how everyone could tell when he was consulting the ring for answers. Why did all its answers have to be textbook? Right, later. Gaara nodded disbelievingly. So it doesn't have unlimited power? Diana smirked. Keep reading, Barry. Hale grouched. Do you remember that alien mercenary that rescued Superman half a year ago? He's back. He came back to Earth and our watchtower's radar couldn't detect his arrival. So that was the big emergency? Hawkgirl scoffed. Last time we met him, he wasn't a psychopath. He saved Superman's life. You're welcome. Naruto smiled at the Kryptonian. You extorted me out of $4 million. Clark said. No, I risked my life to go to a dead, uninhabitable planet to save your cousin for $4 million. Naruto corrected. You only charged me $4 million because you knew I wouldn't be able to say no. Clark argued. You did say no, remember? Naruto reminded the man. You just changed it to yes because I convinced you. Diana also thought you extorted me. Clark grasped at straws. No, I don't. Diana said. When he puts it like that, it doesn't sound like extortion, Clark. Gaara shrugged. A man's got to eat. There's no point in taking risks if they don't promise a reward. Diana shrugged. Gratitude doesn't feed a person. Batman said. I hate all of you. Clark sighed. Barry snickered and continued to read. Appearances can be deceiving. He's dangerous. He put me under an illusion and I didn't even know it until he lifted the spell himself. While Wonder Woman was imprisoned and I was under that illusion, he broke into Vandal Savage's control room and cut off his head. Because I knew you wouldn't let me do my job otherwise. Naruto rolled his eyes. Would you go into some foreign country without permission and murder a citizen there because he's a wanted man? Batman argued. Well, no. But it's the same situation here. Savage had diplomatic immunity and him getting killed at the same time vigilantes were seen trespassing on foreign grounds would have put us in trouble, regardless of whether we were guilty or not. Why? I thought you acted outside the law. Would they really put you under trial or something? Vigilantism is illegal, Naruto. Clark reminded the boy. The only reason why we tolerate it is because we're able to do the things that the normal agencies are either incapable of or are restricted by the law from doing, but even then, there are still some ground rules we have to obey. Do you even have to follow any of the rules? Naruto asked. You're outside the law. We don't. Clark admitted. But aside from defend the Earth, we still uphold the law. People look at us and they see justice, hope, impartiality. It'd be hypocritical of us to ignore laws when we claim to be enforcers of it. Even if it means helping the world? Naruto blinked. I mean, would anyone really think Savage's death is a bad thing just because he's married a queen? Most people don't even know who Savage is. As far as they're concerned, we interrupted a queen's wedding and murdered her husband. I'm sure you can imagine how that would sound to the public. Clark reasoned. Naruto could. With people who only barely tolerated the vigilantes already, something like that would give them enough reason to start acting against them. A momentary silence descended. In their memories, the alien mercenary and his talking fox did not strike them as a cold-blooded killer. If anything, he seemed like a decent person at heart because he had gone out of his way to save Superman and Supergirl. It was Green Lantern that broke the silence. As far as I'm concerned, good riddance. Figures you'd be the first to say it. Oliver snorted amusedly. I'm not going to pretend he's worth saving. Hale rolled his eyes. Someone should have killed him ages ago. It won't be on our watch. Batman said. Like hell it won't. I'm not going to kill him, I'm just not going to save him. Hale said resolutely. The man's words reminded him of Jim's plea back when he'd held a dying Joker in his arms. Batman gave him the same response he gave the commissioner. If you don't save him even though you can, you might as well be the one to kill him. I can live with that. Hale shrugged. I think I can rest easy knowing my inaction stopped World War III or a second Holocaust or something. Diana nodded slightly. But unlike the Lantern, she wouldn't simply let Savage die, she'd personally see to it that he was well and truly dead. Seeing the way everyone was looking at him, he said. That madman poisoned the king of a country, destroyed 3 US Navy ships killing almost everyone on board and then tried to start World War III. I'll say it again, good riddance. Not to mention what he did in World War II too. You're welcome. Naruto said smugly. For what? Gaara asked. Are you kidding? This guy sounds like the root of all evil and I got rid of him for you. Naruto pointed at the screen. For money. Clark pointed out. Is the mercenary part really all you see when you look at me? Naruto frowned at the man. An act of good doesn't become less good just because it wasn't done for free, Clark. Diana deadpanned. Rather than dwell on the reason why he did it, take satisfaction in knowing that it was an act of good. Kakashi nodded to that. The people of Wave didn't care that the ninjas who freed them from Gato only did so because they were paid to. They only cared that the man was gone. I guess you're right. Clark muttered. When presented with the hard facts, nobody could retort against his words. Vandal Savage was one of the worst scourges on Earth. Batman narrowed his eyes as he spoke. This guy is a mercenary. He'll do whatever he's paid for. What if his target was the US president instead of Vandal Savage? What could we have done to stop him when we can't even detect him? I see your point, Hale admitted begrudgingly, but I still think you're overthinking things. He's not actually. Kakashi said. If someone walks behind you and somehow escapes your notice until they greet you, they could very well slit your throat if they wanted to. That's a bit much, Barry started. But I'm not wrong. Kakashi insisted. He might not have come for a malicious purpose, at least not one that targets you, but the fact that he escaped your notice alone should be a cause for concern. He's not trying to rally you against Naruto, just letting you know the more unpleasant thing that could have happened so you understand the need for caution. Even Hale couldn't argue with that. Batman nodded at the silver-haired man thankfully, pleased to have someone who agreed with him. At his words, everyone finally realized the gravity of the situation, what Batman was worried about. We've banded together and created the Justice League after Imperium nearly took over our planet almost 1 year ago. Our purpose, as the Justice League, was primarily to defend against alien threats. If we can't do that, what is the Justice League needed for anymore? We don't need to work together just to keep criminals in check with our superpowers, we've been doing that just fine, solo, long before the Justice League was formed. Clark had to agree with that. Save for the ones with protégés, everyone else had been a solo act until the League was formed. Even after the League was formed, they only really banded together when it was time to deal with extraterrestrial threats or matters that affected them all. It was Naruto who broke the silence that had fallen on them. Imperium. An race of shape-shifting aliens that tried to take over Earth about a year ago. Barry said. They came pretty close too. Clark sighed guiltily. They wouldn't have gone as far as they had if he hadn't been tricked into disabling all the defenses around the world. Diana noticed that and patted him on the shoulder. You had no way of knowing, Clark. They had everyone fooled. Yeah, man. I think even my boss got replaced by one too. Barry said. Maybe that's why he gave me a raise for handing him coffee. Kara frowned. In all the months she spent giving Cat Grant coffee before getting fired for missing a week of work, she didn't even get so much as a thank you from the woman, and he got a raise after handing his boss one cup? It should have been me, not him. It's not fair. Superman nodded and said in support to his words. Batman is right. We're not the only ones who took the responsibility of protecting the innocent. Almost every large city has its own local hero or group of heroes that protect it, just like us. As the Justice League, we must not forget about our purpose. So those ones cover you whenever you're gone? Naruto asked. Well, kind of. Clark nodded tentatively. There's usually more than one vigilante in a city, so when one's gone, the other just goes on. Yeah, I cover for Clark in Metropolis whenever he goes off to space. Kara grinned. And you haven't, thanks. Clark smiled at his cousin. You can thank me by letting me stay in Metropolis. My gratitude only extends so far, sadly. He smiled. Naruto chuckled at her annoyed huff. Can't you find some job where you're and save enough money to find accommodation on your own? You can find another job in Metropolis to support yourself when you're in. Clark twitched. Don't give her ideas, Naruto. No, he's got a point. Kara nodded contemplatively. You're right, Naruto. I'll start job hunting when we get back. The older Kryptonian glared mildly at the blonde ninja who shrugged sheepishly. As they started to discuss how to improve Earth's defenses against external threats, an alarm started to blare from the Watchtower's control room. Flash was the first to arrive and see the reason. An enormous alien ship could be seen heading towards Earth at a very high speed. The superheroes tensed at the sight. Wait, that's a Gordanian ship. Hale frowned at the screen. You think it's Starfire in there? Barry asked. Forget that, it's not flying towards Earth, it's falling. Kara pointed at the pillar of green, orange and blue fire behind the ship. And it looks to be headed towards Jump City. Batman cut Hale off. It's headed towards Jump City. How do you know that? Diana asked. Because that's the same spacecraft that crashed in Jump City earlier this year. Batman said. Robin told me the only survivor was a girl who didn't speak English. She only learned enough of the language from him to translate her name to Starfire. And you didn't think to tell any of us this? Clark asked the man annoyedly. There wasn't much reason to. Batman said simply. Even Robin didn't tell me much about her beyond that. That's a huge win for your boy, Batman. Hale grinned teasingly. What do you mean? Batman frowned. Tamaranians learn languages through lip contact. She kissed him. Ooh. Oliver and Barry oohed in unison. Dinah rolled her eyes at the two. No wonder he didn't tell you that. Diana smirked. She'd met the boy a few times when she visited Gotham, and in spite of his overly serious demeanor, he was very flammable. Lucky guy. Kakashi chuckled. Can we come back to the fact that there's a giant ship about to crash in your world? Tsunade cut the fun short. Party pooper. Barry rolled his eyes but kept reading. Even after all these years, I can't see what you like so much about ramen. The taste is nothing special and there is so little meat. We're also in the middle of a job, aren't we? Kyuubi's voice sounded in Naruto's earpiece. You take that back. Naruto glared at the screen. You sound like a fool. Kurama spoke up from his place on Diana's legs, ignoring how everyone tensed when they heard his voice. You sound like a blasphemer. Naruto shot back. Ramen is special and we aren't all gluttons for meat. The amusement derived from watching you obsess over that slop died out a long time ago. Kurama replied calmly. It truly is nothing special and I will not have you continue your unhealthy habit of eating it every single day. Naruto glared at the fox but didn't respond. He knew Kurama could stop him from eating what he didn't want him to. The fox had once made him vomit an entire bowl of shark fin soup in front of the water daimyo for shits and giggles. Wonder what job you're on. Barry mused. Isn't it obvious? He's here for Starfire. Oliver said. It was sarcasm, Oliver. Barry lied. The archer wasn't fooled. Sure it was. Batman sent the boy a suspicious look. He knew Naruto didn't care much about people who weren't related to his targets, but he had no problem with killing whoever proved an obstacle to his goal. He hoped for their sakes that Robin and his team didn't try to fight him. It wasn't worth it to die for a stranger, an alien stranger at that. Naruto brought the bowl of ramen to his mouth and drank all the remaining soup in one breath. Shut up. When was the last time I had ramen? Half a year ago. 6 months. That is pretty long. Naruto muttered. Not long enough. Kurama said. Diana had to agree with the boy. She couldn't imagine herself doing away with ice cream for 6 months if she could help it. Suddenly, a very loud growling sound almost made Naruto go deaf in one ear. Oi, Kurama, the hell was that? What are you doing? Just a stupid bear that didn't know its place. I'm going to eat roasted bear now. Talk to you later. Kyuubi said and then cut off his transmission. A bear? Barry blinked. Forget the bear, hunting without permission is illegal, Naruto. Clark frowned at Naruto. It is? Naruto blinked. I guess it's fortunate that I'm not from your world. When in Rome, do as the Romans do. Diana said. What's that? Naruto squinted at her. It means you have to follow the rules of wherever you are so long as you're there. Kara said. Come to think of it, why did the speaker pick Rome specifically? Oliver stroked his mustache. What if instead of when in Rome, he said when in Greece? Barry mused. The two bent their heads in mock contemplation. Deep thoughts with tea. Shut the hell up and read. Tsunade growled at the speedster who yelped. This chapter had been a very boring read so far. Good grief, Naruto said and chuckled at Kyuubi's antics. After capturing Vandal Savage, Naruto did not immediately leave the Earth. Earth was one of the very few planets where people cook ramen and he had not eaten any in half a year, since the last time he came to Earth. Naturally, he would not pass on the opportunity to have some again. But Kyuubi did not tag along with him this time around and chose instead to wander through the Balkan Mountains, where Kaznia was located, in the meantime, having some fun of his own. Those poor bears. Oliver's crocodile tear was betrayed by his grin. Dinah smirked. With his size, they'll get wiped out from that area before the day's over. I'll compose a rap song to mourn them. Barry's snicker died out when she glared at him. You do that and I'll burst your eardrums so badly, even altering time won't repair it for you. She threatened. He gulped and kept reading. As for Naruto, he flew halfway across the planet, from southeastern Europe to the northeastern coast of the American continent, to Boston City, where he had eaten ramen the last time. While the Justice League was having a very serious discussion concerning the danger that Naruto posed, the man in question was in a world of happiness as mountains of empty bowls of ramen piled up on his table. I see what Kurama means by obsession. Diana stared at the screen and the boy sitting beside her. You couldn't possibly have eaten all that by yourself. Absence makes the heart grow fonder, Diana. Naruto said. Not the stomach bigger. Diana argued as she pointed at the screen. That's too much and it's unhealthy. Sure, she could eat as much ice cream in one go as that, but it was different. Ice cream wasn't solid. I have a fast metabolism. Naruto tried to defend himself. Believe me, if I didn't burn fat and muscle fast, I'd be looking like a brick house or a ball of lard by now. He's not lying. Kakashi said. And it's a bit hypocritical of you to complain about that, Diana. Clark pointed out. You spent more than half your money on ice cream that you finish in less than a day. A faint blush streaked across her face as she glared at the Kryptonian. Ice cream isn't food. But it's a lot unhealthier than ramen. Barry said. I think we should be worried about you instead. Why? She frowned. Half the stuff you eat most of the time have absurd amounts of sugar. Barry said. Do you know what you means? I like sugary food. No, it means you're doing a diabetes speed run. Oliver laughed and high-fived Barry. They're meant for each other. Tsunade muttered sourly. She thought Diana would be the one to convince Naruto to quit his unhealthy feeding habits, but it turned out she was just like him. Naruto, who heard her, blushed brightly. Is something wrong, Naruto? Diana asked him. No, I just remembered something. He said quickly. I thought you'd be more concerned about the alien ship about to crash on Earth than Naruto's dietary choices. Kara said. In the end, there's nothing we can do but watch. Clark said. But you're right, we should see what happens next. The speedster got the message and continued. Since it was early morning on the eastern coast of America at that moment, there were other customers besides him in the restaurant too. It goes without saying that his outrageous eating immediately became the focus of their attention. Wearing a mask while eating did not do him any favors either. Kakashi smiled. Keeping the culture alive. Tsunade gave him a blank stare. You're the only one who does that, Hatache. What culture? Don't act like you haven't seen the increasing number of mask wearers since I became Hokage, Lady Tsunade. The man grinned. Tsunade grumbled but didn't argue with that. More than half the genin she'd seen now wore masks. If Naruto's fashion wasn't atrocious on anyone other than himself, she was sure she'd have seen more people running around in black and orange. How are you eating with your mask on though? Kara asked. They cut on the mask? Clark guessed. Porous fabric? Barry offered. He's eating ramen. Oliver said. The noodles and toppings would have been filtered out from the broth. Big paws on the fabric? Barry tried again. Fishnet. Dinah grinned. Naruto shuddered. He'd never be caught dead wearing fishnet. Illusion. Gaara put an end to the debate. He's not wearing a mask, it's an illusion. Ruin the fun, why won't you? Kakashi sighed. Some crazy alien crashed on Earth again. Hey, Russell, turn up the volume. One of the customers asked the clerk behind the counter. It looked like the customer in question was a regular because the clerk listened to his request and turned up the volume on the TV hanging above the counter. Naruto threw a passing glance at the screen but he immediately focused his full attention on it when he saw the contents of the news report. The mountain comes to Muhammad. Oliver stroked his mustache again. Master Yoshi, what more wisdom do you have for me? Barry clapped his palms together. If you are depressed, just be happy. Haha. Barry burst into laughter but stopped when nobody laughed with him. Diana, along with everyone, laughed at his misfortune. I hate all of you. Barry grumbled when the laughter died out before reading again. An alien object crashed in the center of Jump City just 10 minutes ago. The sole survivor of the crash appears to be a young woman in her late teens, but it became clear that she was not human when she spoke in an alien language and started smashing the walls of the surrounding buildings with her hands. Charles Rock is at the scene with more information. As the news anchor spoke, a live footage started playing. But when Naruto saw who that alien was, he said slowly. No fucking way. Ain't no way, ain't no fucking way. Clark stopped when he saw the surprised looks he got. Even Batman was shocked. What? You said the F-word. Oliver whispered. I'm just quoting the song. Clark defended himself quickly. You listen to rap. Dinah shook her head disappointedly. He used to watch Gangland, Pretty Bird. Of course he listens to rap. Oliver laughed. Damn, Clark. You're a lot more fun than I thought you'd be. Then wait, you thought I was boring? Clark blinked. Well, no, but come on. Oliver spread his arms. Superpowered farm boy dedicated to upholding truth, justice and the American dream. That's as white bread as it gets. But I like white bread. Clark thought before speaking. That's not boring at all. That is a little boring when you think of it. Kara admitted. It doesn't help that everyone has you tagged as a Boy Scout. Clark sighed ashamedly. Maybe it was for the best that he didn't tell everyone he used to be a Boy Scout and got all the badges. Was being a good person considered plain now? He tapped quickly on his wristwatch and a hologram appeared from it. It was the 3D image of a young woman in her late teens with golden-colored skin, long, wavy red hair, and bright green eyes. Naruto's eyes widened at the screen. He'd seen beautiful women but gods. Was there not an average woman from that world? Diana didn't like how he looked at the screen, but she had to admit, the girl was extremely attractive. I see why the Gordanians were content with taking her. What? Naruto shot to her. Oh yeah, it's a real shame. Caught you lacking. Kurama's laugh reverberated in his head. Fuck off. Hale stood up. Ladies and gentlemen, we are gathered here to celebrate the size of the W Batman's boy scored. Indeed. Barry stood up as well. A toast to Robin. For receiving a kiss from a maiden this fair. To Robin. Oliver yelled. For scoring such a hot chick. She's 17. Batman said. The three men froze. You know, there's a saying that comes to my mind now. Kara tapped her chin. It rhymes with FBI open up. Void, what are the chances? The girl in the hologram coming from his wristwatch was the very same person as the berserk alien on the news report. It was none other than Coriander, the princess of Tamarin who Naruto was supposed to rescue from the Saiyans. Savior Naruto coming in clutch. Oliver grinned at Batman. Your boy isn't getting this win here, I'm afraid. Batman rolled his eyes. He'd never say it, but he hoped the girl stayed with Dick. His ward never really got the chance to try his luck with Barbara who he had a massive crush on. An Elmeration warship was flying at the fastest speed it was capable of in Earth's atmosphere. The moment Naruto realized that the alien that had crashed into Jump City was his bounty, he ditched his ramen in a heartbeat and teleported back to his ship. To cover the distance between Boston and Jump City, Earth's commercial aeroplanes would need to fly for a few good hours. One city was on the east coast while the other one was on the west coast of the USA. In contrast, it took him only a few minutes. I am Speed. Oliver did an accurate impression of Speed McQueen. Barry looked offended. I am Speed. Hale formed a cup in his hand, puckered his lips and looked away. I don't know man, Wally's been leaving you in the dust lately. Are you kidding me? Those races were for charity. Barry said incredulously. You really think I'd get left in the dust by a teenager? The student must always surpass the teacher. Oliver stroked his mustache again. Does that mean you're expecting Roy to beat the stuffing out of you one day? Hale asked. Oliver looked like he swallowed a lemon. He'd hang up the bow the day that happened. Dinah's grin let him know she knew what he was thinking. Maybe it doesn't have to happen all the time. Batman agreed with that. The only day he'd let Dick best him was when he was old. However, despite his speedy arrival, by the time he got there, the Central District was already trashed as if it had gone through a war. Destroyed buildings, burning cars, cracked streets, and civilians running away in panic. Whoever gets hired to clean up's going to have a field day with that. Kara remarked. Poor guys. Barry nodded. Poor guys? Oliver snorted. Are you kidding? This is payday for them. They love when stuff like this happens. In the middle of all that destruction, the Tamarian princess was shooting energy bolts from her cuffed hands while screaming in an alien language. Opposite of her, three peculiar teenagers were running and dodging as though their very lives were on the line, and that was the actual case. In her desperation and rage, Coriander was shooting energy blasts everywhere around her. It's surprising that she's still able to fire any blasts. Hale said. Those cuffs are made specifically for suppressing powers. Really? Kara blinked. Diana stared the girl, impressed with her. Princess or not, she seemed like a capable fighter. Maybe she'd search her out when they got back to Earth so they'd have a little spar. That was super close. A green-skinned boy wearing a helmet said while panting. Wait, Beast Boy? Barry yelled. He's alive. Who's Beast Boy? Oliver asked a shocked Dinah. He was a member of the Doom Patrol. Batman said. I thought they were all dead. Clark said. Their deaths had been caught on camera and it had been one of the things that motivated multiple people to become superheroes. Not all apparently. Barry said. Makes you wonder how many of them are actually still alive. He's the only one. Batman shot down the man's hopes. He didn't want any of them searching for the remaining members. He'd promised them that they'd be able to live out the remainder of their lives away from knowing eyes. Girl is gonna wreck the whole city. Another one of them said. It was a very buff young man dressed in casual clothes and a hoodie covering his head. Going by the red glow in his left eye, it seemed like he was not entirely human. Terminator. Barry squinted at the screen. He's black, Barry. Oliver pointed out. His name's Cyborg. Batman said. He's a member of Robin's team. You have to share these things with us, Batman. Clark frowned at the man. I won't let her. I won't lose this fight. The third one said. It was a black-haired boy dressed in a green and red costume. A thin black mask covered his eyes. Yeah, that's Robin all right. Kara nodded. She recognized that yelling anywhere. No lies there. Only one person yells that way. Clark snickered. Batman rolled his eyes. He really didn't know how or why Dick had gone from a jokester to whatever he was. Alfred blamed it on puberty and Skillet. The three of them were none other than Robin, Beast Boy and Cyborg. At Robin's words, they jumped away from the bus behind which they had taken cover and rushed at the alien girl who had fallen to her knees in exhaustion. But their sight suddenly turned ashen black and they stopped in their tracks. The hell? Tsunade blinked. She'd never seen anything capable of affecting the environment in such a manner. Maybe fighting isn't the answer. A girl said as she walked out of a side alley. Her entire body was covered by a hooded purple cloak. A magician. Clark hypothesized. Don't let Wally hear that. Barry snickered. What, a magician? Yeah, he doesn't believe magic is real. Barry nodded. Little idiot. Oliver snickered but stopped when Dinah nudged him in the side. That's still my apprentice, man. Barry frowned at him. I wish it wasn't. Clark sighed. Why? Have you had a bad experience with magic or something? Naruto asked. No, it just happens to be one of the few things we're vulnerable to. Kara said. That sounds unfortunate. Kara laughed lightly. Unfortunate isn't the word I'd use. We rarely encounter people capable of magic. Wait, so you're usually invulnerable to everything? Tsunade asked. For the most part, yes. Clark admitted. No invincibility, flight, super strength, heat vision, computer brain. I guess the name Superman isn't just a way to fell at yourself. Kakashi said. By the time Clark realized what he'd heard, Barry had already resumed reading. Oh, you know. Further talk among the 14s stopped, however, when someone dropped from the sky almost like a meteorite and the entire street was shaken by the powerful tremor. Who are you? Robin shouted and grabbed a birdurang from his utility belt. I don't think a birdurang's going to do anything to him, Robin. Clark said. It's better than just standing and waiting. Batman commended the boy. Preparedness is everything. It looked like the newcomer did not hear him because he started walking towards the kneeling girl without sparing the other for a glance. Don't come any closer. Coriander shouted hysterically and pointed her cuffed arms at him as energy bolts formed in her hands. Unlike the teens from before, Naruto had no issues with understanding her words thanks to his high-tech translating device. I'm not gonna hurt you. Your parents hired me to rescue you. And that ended the romance between Robin and Starfire. The princess married the mercenary who saved her life and the superhero mourned the one that got away. Oliver hung his head sorrowfully. Does he know? Barry smiled to himself. Kara caught on. What was he cooking? All in his mind? Diana joined in with a grin. I liked happy endings better. Batman said. Oh, it's a happy ending, just not for Robin. Oliver grinned. He rolled his eyes. He doubted Dick would mourn the girl if she left. He was becoming even more of a playboy than he was. He'd find someone else relatively quickly. I doubt Naruto would even want to marry her. Barry said. He did say he's tired of pretty much everyone except for Kurama. She'll warm his heart. Oliver rubbed his hands. It's funny how they're not even considering that they have a Naruto here. Kara whispered to the boy in question who shook his head. I think it's best to leave them be. Naruto shook his head. Besides, I don't think Starfire's going to be enthused to leave with me. Naruto had expected at the mention of her parents for the girl to calm down but instead, her face became twisted in anger and she screamed as she shot two very powerful bolts of energy from her hands. Her parents sold her off. Clark recalled. Of course she wouldn't want to go back. Unfortunately, he's doing it for the money. Diana said. What she wants doesn't really matter to him. You're not going to take her back, are you? Kara raised an eyebrow at Naruto. I don't know about the other me, but I'm ultimately a mercenary, Kara. He admitted. We're with whoever hired us, regardless of good or bad. Hell, half the time, we don't even like the people we work for. The best we can do now is hope something happens to stop me from getting the job done to make me change my mind. She didn't look very happy with that, but didn't say anything. Naruto looked back at the screen. He knew she understood, but understanding something didn't mean she had to like it. Though startled, he was not caught off guard. He had been cautious from the beginning because he knew very well just how dangerous a cornered beast could be. With a stomp of his foot, the street in front of his feet rose to make a wall in front of him, just in time to block the green energy bolts. Eidaraihiki without any hand seals. Kakashi thought, amazed. He knew the boy had become very proficient in ninjutsu, but that was amazing. The others were focused on the screen as well. It was the first time they got to see Naruto in any action that didn't involve sneaking and they were all eager to see what he'd do, even though they didn't expect it to be anything more than him curb-stomping the teenagers. The wall was blasted to smithereens but the girl had poured the last of her strength in that attack. Then, she collapsed back on the ground powerlessly. She no longer posed any threat. That was anticlimactic. Barry said disappointedly. Were you expecting me to beat up the tired, confused and angry girl I was hired to rescue? Naruto asked. No, but you have to admit even you were expecting to see at least a little battle. Yeah, I was. Naruto admitted. Well, the chapter's not over yet. Oliver said. We might still see some action. It's all right, little girl. Just go to sleep. Naruto said and he formed a ram seal with his hands. The Temple of Nirvana technique. Tsunade blinked. Isn't that a bit excessive? She still had enough energy to fire a blast capable of demolishing an earth wall even though she had energy suppressing cuffs on and had been rampaging for nearly an hour. Naruto pointed out. I guess you're right. What's the Temple of Normal technique? Barry asked. Temple of Nirvana technique. Naruto corrected. It's used to induce sleep in the target until the caster ends the technique or someone else breaks them free from it. Oh, that makes sense. Barry nodded. Seeing as how nobody else could use energy similar to his, it was safe to assume the girl would spend the whole journey back to Tamarind in blissful slumber. Though Coriander was able to detect the unknown energy that invaded her body, she was too exhausted to resist against it. Her eyes closed against her will and she fell on her side, succumbing into a Genjutsu-induced deep sleep. Oliver didn't make any jokes this time. For the first time since they'd started reading, he found himself wishing Naruto failed this job. The girl shouldn't have to be forced to go back to her parents, who would undoubtedly sell her off again if they had to. Most of the other superheroes had the same feeling but didn't voice it. As Naruto had already said, he wasn't always the good guy. It was the same technique that Kabuto had cast over the stadium where Naruto's first Chunin exams had taken place when he was a young genin. Is it going to be a running gag now for you to have experienced every single thing you use on others? Clark asked. Naruto shrugged. It wasn't his fault that he was often motivated to learn about things he'd seen and experienced. The chakra comprehension made it almost passive for him now. That is to say that it was an area of effect technique. The alien princess was not the only one to be forced into a deep sleep, but two of the three boys on the sidelines also fell on the ground asleep, with Beast Boy even snoring out loud. Batman sighed. He couldn't even fault Dick for having succumbed to the illusion when even he hadn't realized he'd been caught in one till it had been lifted. I never really realized it till now, but illusions are kind of overpowered. Barry said. Cersei's magic mostly involves illusions powerful enough to bridge the gap between the real and the virtual. Diana pointed out. Naruto blinked. That drew an uncomfortable parallel with Yakumo, who could also affect reality with her paintings. The only ones who could hold their composure and resist the Genjutsu were the Cloaked Girl, Raven, and Cyborg, due to him being half robot. Over the past century, Naruto had never stopped training his taijutsu, ninjutsu and jinjutsu, the three main arts of a shinobi. He had achieved an impressive feat in his ninjutsu due to his shadow clonus. Shadow clones? Kara asked. You can clone yourself. Naruto nodded and formed a single seal. Without the characteristic puff of smoke, a duplicate appeared next to him, surprising the superheroes. I'll never get over seeing him making only one. Tsunade muttered to Kakashi and Gaara, who agreed. They were all used to seeing him make hundreds in a go. A wide-eyed Diana poked his clone in the arm before grabbing his hand and examining his fingers. He's tangible too. Even his flesh is supple. He accepts your proposal. Hale grinned. Diana frowned at him for a moment before she realized how she was holding his hand and let go of the limb. I'm sorry, I didn't know. It's cool. The clone nodded at her frantically before turning to his maker. I'd like to go now, boss. Just dispel yourself, you sloth. Naruto frowned at the clone. You're the one calling yourself lazy. The clone jeered before disappearing in a puff of smoke. You do that back and forth often? Kara asked. They all seem to have personalities of their own, it's annoying. Naruto shook his head. No, it's amazing. Barry corrected him. Self-duplication in itself is a rare power, but even then, it's usually just copies of the original with a hive mind. They don't appear as their own person. Did you make that up by yourself? Naruto smiled. Yee. Like hell you did. Tsunade yelled. You just pirated it. Oh come on, Granny. He created practically every single technique in that damn scroll. Why can't I take credit for mastering even one? Naruto groaned. She's the lady. Oliver snickered. He had mastered all 5 nature transformations and even the yin and yang releases. His taijutsu had become flawless as well. Due to knowing that if he found a way back home he would have to fight against the rabbit goddess, Naruto had never slacked in his training. Naruto's expression dampened for a moment at the reminder of his inevitable doom waiting for him even if he managed to find his way back. Diana rubbed his shoulder comfortingly but didn't say anything. But Jinjutsu had never been his strong point. He had no talent in that area and hard work could only take one so far. Although he became proficient enough with it to fool the senses of regular people, those with decent magic resistance and any half-decent magic user could resist his Jinjutsu without problems. In that regard, the aforementioned girl, Raven, was more than half-decent when it came to magic. That explains it. Naruto said. He made a mental note to apply more pressure in Jinjutsu mastery. It was annoying to see someone not even have to actively resist his illusion. Black light appeared around Raven's hands and her eyes glowed beneath her hood. Cyborg's hand transformed into a cannon too as he shouted. What did you do to them? I banished their minds to the Shadow Realm. Oliver said in a deep voice. The Doom Dimension clears easy. Barry said resolutely. Blasphemy. Oliver hissed before Dinah slapped his arm angrily. You got spit on me. Say it, don't spray it, Parseltong. Barry laughed at the man. But Naruto did not have time to reply because a beam of red light blew up the place in front of his feet. It was a warning shot, coming from none other than Superman. Oh come on, I didn't even do anything. Naruto threw his arms up angrily. Clark smiled sheepishly. You have to see it from my view. You're standing in front of 3 unconscious teenagers and the other 2 want to attack you. I know that, I just don't like it. And he was not alone. Alongside him were also Flash, Batman and Hawkgirl. The ship that the Watchtower had detected was a Gordanian ship from which Coriander had broken out. Green Lantern, Martian Manhunter and Wonder Woman were investigating it at that moment. Now, he was surrounded from all sides by the 4 members of the Justice League and 2 of the local heroes of Jump City. Is it wrong that I think he kind of looks badass surrounded like that? Oliver noticed. No, you're right. Hale agreed. It's like that Darth Vader panel. Naruto grinned. Don't get a big head, Clark would beat you. Kara rolled her eyes. I'd like to see the boy try. Do not move. Superman demanded. Naruto frowned behind his mask. Why did you come back to Earth? And why did you kill Vandal Savage? Clark asked. Gee, Superman, why would a mercenary capture someone? Maybe because someone paid me to? Deadshot said the same thing. Diana chuckled. You bring out the sarcasm in mercenaries, don't you, Clark? It's a talent. The man said annoyedly. Superman frowned at his sarcasm. Why are you all even mad? I got rid of a mass murderer for you, for free at that. For all I know, you should be grateful. No lengthy trials, no chance for him to buy his way out with bribes and good lawyers and no chance for him to escape prison again either. He's finished. That's not how things work on Earth, Batman retorted. No one has the right to take the law in their hands and kill. Ahem. Hale cleared his throat. Don't. Batman stopped him. Naruto let out a drawn-out sigh. Whatever you say. I'm not in the mood for polemics. Look, I'll just get my bounty and be out of here. Then, under their eyes, he bent down and grabbed the sleeping princess from the ground and put her on his wide shoulder. Put the girl down, Superman ordered as he started making steps towards him. She's my bounty. And she's not an earthling. This has nothing to do with you. Naruto said calmly, trying to reason with them. However, in the next moment, a red blow rushed at him from behind at the speed of sound. But with a light stomp of his foot, dangerous-looking spikes burst from the ground, almost impaling the attacker. The speedster was forced to jump high up in the air at the very last moment and abandon his attacking attempt. It's odd that you'd be so into saving someone who's not even a citizen. Naruto frowned at them. Are you always so inclined to ignore reason? I agree with him on this one, it's dumb what you're doing. Hale said. You're the ones who have no right to keep him from doing his job. Clark sighed. Was it so wrong to want to save a person? It doesn't change the fact that he broke international laws, attacked Earth citizens and tried to apprehend someone on Earth soil. When in Rome. You don't even try to listen to him. Do you even know who sent him? Hale asked, his annoyance showing. I've seen planets destroyed for the exact same thing you're doing. They keep important people from doing their jobs, attack them, maybe kill them or send them packing and a few hours later, their world is an asteroid field. Most of the heroes paled at that. They didn't have any illusions of being able to fight off a civilization advanced enough to simply blow up the Earth without even entering its orbit. A clone appeared next to Naruto and grabbed the princess from his shoulder. Then, he turned towards the heroes surrounding him and warned. I'm saying it one last time. This has nothing to do with you. Back off before things get ugly. I don't want to hurt you. Clark frowned. He'd heard more threatening things but there was something in the way Naruto said his threat that made his hairs stand on end. Generally, Naruto tried to not get into altercations with good-natured people. He did not want to kill or maim people that did not deserve it. However, because he was not bound by their tight morals, once in a while, scenes like the current one still took place. Getting the job done by any means, huh? Oliver laughed humorlessly. It can't be helped if people don't want to let me go peacefully. Naruto shrugged. And you've all seen for yourselves that I tried to be peaceful. They couldn't argue with that. Oh, I don't know who'll get hurt in the end, Hawkgirl said and her mace shone menacingly with electricity. I suggest you let go of that girl and hand over Vandal Savage's remains too. After that, we won't stop you from leaving. You can leave the Earth and never come back. Batman said. Unfortunately, I can't do either of that. Naruto smiled. I can do the third though. Batman rolled his eyes. Naruto no longer spoke. He prepared for fighting. Naturally, in normal conditions, he could have just teleported back to his ship and then be on his way. But with Coriander in his custody, things were different. He was more than capable of teleporting her alongside him but the problem came after that. He did not know for how long the Jinjutsu that he had placed on her would last. His skill with Jinjutsu was unreliable. If the teleportation jostles her awake, my ship's probably done for. Naruto said. If she wakes up in my ship and starts throwing around her energy bolts, my ship will be toasted. Called it. He smiled. He's you. Of course you know what he's thinking of. Tsunade sighed. Initially, he had intended to explain the Tamaranian princess the situation and make her come willingly. But that idea flew out of the window with the Justice League's appearance. Of course, he also had another option, to beat the crap out of the girl until she became physically unable to even move, but Naruto was not the kind to raise his hands against innocence. Especially since his mission was supposed to be about rescuing and protecting her, not breaking her arms and legs. But just then, a huge hologram appeared in the sky. It was the image of a muscular humanoid lizard with red eyes and metallic wings. It was a Gordanian. A sonorous voice reverberated through the entire city. People of Earth. We come to your planet to hunt down an escaped prisoner. A very dangerous prisoner. Do not interfere and we will leave your city with minimum damage. But if you attempt to assist her, your destruction will be absolute. There it is. Hale sighed. They make that threat everywhere they go but they never really just leave people alone. You'll have to fight if you don't want Earth enslaved. I'm guessing they follow through with it? Dino asked. To a T. He nodded. It's not that they're particularly strong, they're just very numerous. Like very numerous. She nodded understandingly. Numbers almost always overwhelmed. Batman, the Gordanians on the ship do not want to negotiate. We cannot approach them easily either. They have their weapons aimed at us. True to the Martian's words, only a few moments later, a swarm of flying Gordanians appeared in the sky above Jump City. There were almost 100 of them. Barry whistled nervously. We've got our work cut out for us, huh? Everyone waited with bated breaths for him to continue, but he silently stared at the book. I can't believe it. Oliver frowned. Did they lose? Believe what? Barry didn't respond. Believe what, Barry? He asked again. Oh God. The speedster's shoulders began to tremble. His voice was cracked when he spoke again. Oh God, this can't be real. Now, everyone was concerned. Barry, what's wrong? What did you see? A worried Clark neared the man who was already shedding tears. No, it can't be. Barry shook his head frantically as tears fell out from his eyes. Naruto frowned as did Diana. What had the man seen to make him act this way? Barry, please tell us. What did you see? What happened? Clark held the man's shoulder apprehensively. The One Piece. Dart. Fucking shit. Oliver drew his bow swiftly and fired 3 arrows at Barry who disappeared before they even left the bow. The One Piece is real. Hale yelled. Can we get much higher? Barry yelled in the distance. So high. Show us your dick. Kara shouted. Kara. A horrified Clark screamed. In the chaos, Naruto blinked. What's the One Piece? Hello guys, if you enjoyed this part of the story please like and subscribe to the channel and with this sayonara.